the podcast that loves the Power Glove. It's so bad. This is Whacked Out Wrestling. Hello, everybody. It's Whacked Out Wrestling, and this is the big one because if it's been a long December or a long October through December, or really a long 2018, but there's reason to believe maybe this year will be better than the last. And that's why we've got to look back at this year in pro wrestling on this one. And why? Because all the tapings were revealed last week, so it doesn't really matter what goes through on it. All we needed to know was that that they're actually finally making the women's tag team titles. But of course, they had to reveal this by Vince McMahon dressed as Santa Claus. And Christmas is indeed Rusev Day.
Word.
Yep. And that was kind of weird on this one, where they've been waiting for women's tag titles for a year now. They've had it go through, and you have it revealed by Vince McMahon dressed as Santa Claus.
Well, I mean, I guess it goes along with the whole angle of we're going to do what the fans want. So the fans have been, I guess the fans have been begging for tag titles. I've heard talk about them.
Yeah, and it could be good, but there's also the question of, you can just imagine Vince McMahon also saying, come on, sit on my lap and tell me what you really want.
Oh, good Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Vince is like 70. Does it still work?
He is on steroids, so he probably has Viagra, steroids, coke, everything to cause it to happen. So
the man has more issues than 2000 AD.
Exactly.
Now I'm having a I don't know, man. Just
although fewer than Shonen Jump, I think. I'm not sure.
Fewer than what?
Shonen Jump's the way that Vince McMahon does his booking. Basically, person shows up, they have a fight, the fight keeps going, the hero finally wins, then the villain becomes their friend, repeat with a new villain.
Yeah, it sounds like so. WWE is Dragon Ball.
Basically.
I remember reading. You know what's crazy? I remember reading when I was up at college. I remember reading Shonen Jump when it came to the States, and I remember seeing the first issue of Naruto. I think it showed Naruto, Yu Yu Hakusho, and it showed Yu-Gi-Oh! And what was crazy was Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time was a children's series, yet reading the anime, reading the anime, really cute, Joey. Reading the manga, it seemed more edgy, and I was thinking to myself, why didn't they make Yu-Gi-Oh! Like this?
Well, technically they did, but that series was never released in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So what did they do? Did they do like what Deke did to Sailor Moon to Yu-Gi-Oh? Is that what you're insinuating?
No, the part that they did, the anime that got released in the U.S. for, was a later arc, like the Duelist Kingdom arc. Was the original arc was basically where the Spirit and the Millennium Puzzle was basically kind of like Jigsaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I'd love to see the series of that. I haven't. But I mean, I remember seeing Naruto, and everyone was hyping up Naruto as the next big thing, and I didn't see nothing special out of it. But well, here we are, like 17 going on 18 years later. Boy, I was wrong about that one.
Yeah.
Well, you have to understand that Naruto was really it was something that had never been done before. It was basically a long-running setup for Boruto.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know about that one because at least with One Piece, that seemed like it was going to be the blue chip one because of how big it was in Japan, and it would. Yeah, but there seemed to be no way it could have failed in the U.S. And then 4Kids got a hold of it, and they found a way to make it fail.
But then wait a minute, Adult Swim picked it up, did later episodes, and did it justice. Yes.
Yeah, and then it actually started to become good and started to pick up some steam then.
While we're on the subject of Shonen Jump shit, you know what? Is it just me? I know I've heard like Akira Toriyama only made Dragon Ball Z more edgy because he was forced to, and I know Dragon Ball started out as a gag cartoon, and and I've seen and read the manga of both Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but and I'm not going to say, and GT was dog shit, but Toriyama had nothing to do with that, but looking at Super, is it just me? I mean, I know that Toriyama, has full control and he's going back to his gag roots, but is it just me, or does it seem like from watching the series, it just seems like it just seems like they've turned Dragon Ball Z into one, but from a bunch of fighters fighting and getting stronger to the misadventures of the rich and famous.
Honestly, I could see it as a positive in that case, simply because of the fact that Dragon Ball Z is a fighting anime. It's hard because we've already seen all the fights. They can't really do justice, and they were kind of jokes on it. Between the fact that they were 4 or 5 episodes for one fight to finish, or the fact that every one of those fights was done better in a video by some angsty teen to a Linkin Park song, it was pretty.
Yeah, those were all over the place. I mean, I just think, I've watched Super. I've watched a few episodes. I mean, I've watched a few episodes here and there, but Super to me, I mean, I know Toriyama's sticking true to his gag roots. Hey, by the way, the episode where they meet the girl from Dr. Slump and Vegeta gets his ass kicked is hilarious.
Yeah.
But just to me, it just seems like they've deteriorated the characters into basically, they're now rich and famous and living leisurely. I just think they lost some of their grit there, but I'm not saying it's a bad show. I'm just saying the change just makes it look bizarre now.
I could see it, but honestly, it seems like there needed to be some fixes to it, because at least the first Dragon Ball was interesting because they got the mix of fighting and gags right there. But
I can watch the first Dragon Ball or read the first Dragon Ball anytime.
Yeah, but then
it has to be a special episode or special series in the manga.
Yeah, and then with Z, it basically was. They went full fighting on that, and then with GT, it was, let's get a bunch of old white guys in a boardroom somewhere to say, what do we do to make this Dragon Ball thing one of our stuff?
Yeah, Toriyama was like, he wanted to finish. If I recall correctly, Toriyama wanted to finish it after Frieza.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, it was either after Frieza or after Cell, and supposedly he just made the Boost Saga as a fuck you.
Yeah.
And then when they still want to do it, he's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. And that would probably work on it, because if did seem to be some things where you just know when it's pretty much done. And that ties with the Naruto to Boruto thing, where Naruto was clear they were probably done long ago, but with Boruto, this was the ultimate. Boruto is fan fiction come to life. There is no nice way to put it. It is basically, okay, the ship you liked of everyone got hooked up in this one, and these are their kids, and they're going to fight. And they're going to...
And so far, watching the show, it's like there's no originality. They're just carbon copies of their parents.
Yeah. Well, that's because it's also part of the fan fiction point where, okay, we got the most popular couple on there, and they hooked up. So now we're going to have the offspring of the second most popular couples, and they're going to hook up. And then the third one in the series after Boruto.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's not very good at all for it. So.
Right. Oh.
But then
here's a tip for you. Here's a tip for everyone. If you don't have a pull-up bar, and you want to do pull-ups, you can hang on a sturdy door, and it'll work the same way. So just fun tip from Joey the Caveman today.
Yeah. That always helps, because we have the right.
It's got to be a very sturdy door. Don't do it on a chintzy door.
Yeah, that's what we get for the bodybuilding techniques, because we do it better than Lars Sullivan would. So.
Yeah, and also, I'm trying to think of, how does the disclaimer go? I am not responsible for your injuries and blah-de-blah-de-blah.
Yes, we remind you that Joey the Caveman doesn't have money, so sue someone who does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have money one day.
Yeah. But this one, but this week we're going to focus on the best of this year to try and go through a year which there was a lot of bad stuff this year, but there's a lot of hope that 2019 is going to be lit. So that's going to be one plus on it. And that's really all you can hope for on it, because God, 2018 sucked in wrestling. And even the good stuff.
Sucked. I mean, there are some good moments.
Yeah. But even some of the good stuff on it had fails where you had Impact finally come back from the edge and start to be good again. And then they announced that they're going to Pursuit TV starting January 3rd.
Destination America.
Nope. Pursuit is less big than Destination America.
I just said it. It's worse than Destination America.
It's the poor man's version of it.
Brother, they should have taken our idea. Go to Nickelodeon.
That would have been interesting on this one. I'm sure that Dan Schneider could have gotten a lot of work out of Scarlett Bordeaux. So
Dan Schneider doesn't even work for Nickelodeon anymore. They paid him like a severance package. He gone. That's why Game Shakers is dead. Henry Danger's like the only show, but
yeah.
I mean, they should have put it on Nickelodeon. I could just see, like, imagine like Rosemary and Allie on Henry Danger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I mean, one thing I can say is they brought Double Dare back on Nickelodeon. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's worse with the Pursuit, because all signs of it were that not only did TNA fall that far down, and they managed to fall down from being on the preview channel somehow, but they also had to be forced to get onto Pursuit because Anthem Entertainment partially owns the network, and they said, no, you're taking it. So
wait a minute, when were they on the preview channel?
Pop TV was the former preview channel.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
I remember the preview channel. I remember hearing that shitty elevator music when they would announce things on text. And then the funny thing is, I remember watching the preview channel, and sometimes, this is funny, they would have to reboot, and how they would reboot, it would reset, and you know what it would reset to? An old Amiga screen. So the original preview channel back in the early 90s was set up on an Amiga computer.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. I had an Amiga back in the day, and when I saw that when it was rebooting, and it was rebooting with an Amiga computer screen, I'm thinking to myself, wow.
Yeah. And that really was how it went. But yeah, preview channel begat TV Guide channel, and TV Guide channel begat Pop TV.
Learn something new every day.
Yep.
Whole lot of begatting going on.
Mm-hmm. Which works because they also put most of their stuff in Big Brother and soap operas, so of course there'd be begatting.
They always show the reruns of the CBS soap operas, and then they show reruns of like nighttime soap operas that were geared toward teenagers, like 90210, Dawson's Creek, Charmed now is on there.
Yeah.
Buffy was there for a minute. Why don't they pick up Angel, since Angel's not on TNT anymore? I mean, if you're gonna go with this, see, and the only thing is, see, they show the CBS soap operas, which, my mom's a big ABC General Hospital fan, so she wouldn't give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing about the CBS soap operas is it has Alex Moran from Blue Mountain State there. Never watch The Bold and the Beautiful if you're big into Blue Mountain State, because everything cool about Alex Moran, everything that Darren Brooks made cool about Alex Moran, he negates on The Bold and the Beautiful, so don't watch it.
Yeah, but that's perfectly common on these ones. Weren't some of the Power Rangers on Undressed? So
yeah, you're right. He's absolutely right. Tommy was, getting it on with some girl, and they were getting busy with fucking. They were office lackeys getting busy, and I believe one of the second or third female Yellow Ranger was on it too. I don't know what the hell she was doing. Mm-hmm. Undressed. Now there's a show that was around like the late 90s, early zeros, and it was on like almost every day. And dare I say, it was ahead of its time in retrospect.
Yeah. It was a very surprising show in a lot of ways. Most of all, actually put it on all the time.
I can't believe that show's going to be 20 years old. It's like American Pie is going to be 20 years old. The Wizard is going to be 30 years old.
Yep. I
God,
don't
I'm gonna be
think of
39 next year. I'm getting old as shit.
Yeah, I don't think of the fact that it's American Pie being that old on it works on it. Just remember the fact that if the cast of American Pie during that show hooked up and got pregnant as a result of losing their virginities in the movie, they could make a sequel now of their kids doing the same thing.
I don't know if that would fly well. I think, well, you know what? I mean, I take that back because, okay, when I was bored the other day I was bored, I flipped it I was watching an NBA game, and then when it was on halftime, I flipped it. Yeah, I was watching the Raptors Heat. Kawhi's handling his business, doing aces. But Miami, by the way, yesterday had some badass pink uniforms, but they're nothing compared to their white and black Vice jerseys. Those are ace. The pink uniforms are all right, but anyway, I'm digressing. Anyway, I flipped it to CW, and there was a show called All American on, and if you want to know what American Pie, probably the sequel would be done with their kids, it'd probably be done like All American or even Riverdale.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think Riverdale already has its viewpoint on basically take the Archie comic universe and then destroy all of your childhoods forever.
Riverdale's not a bad show, though. Riverdale's all right.
It's a good show, but it's also there's the fact that it can be a good show and it can also completely rape your childhood.
Okay, explain how it can rape your childhood. I want to hear this.
Did you watch that show? You know that Riverdale's a good show and it's a good teen show.
Yes.
Now think of Archie comics.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, and I think I might have mentioned this before on the show, or if not, off the air, but I know they did Archie Meets the Punisher. I always wanted to see Archie meet the ICP and twist it. I always wanted to see that.
Yeah, considering that Archie's gotten into the level where they would have Archie meet anyone if you paid them cash for it. I'm surprised it hasn't happened because
Jughead would easily be a juggalo.
Yeah. Heck, it's honestly kind of shocking we haven't had an Archie WWE crossover yet.
We have the Jetsons WWE crossover, which was like the first new Jetsons since the Jetsons movie.
Yeah. And they had the Flintstones WWE crossovers and a few Scooby-Doo WWE.
What did they do with Flintstones WWE crossover?
Yeah, it was
SmackDown.
Yeah.
When did they do a Flintstones?
The sequel to Surf's Up is technically a WWE crossover.
Yeah, that was dumb. Roach, when did they do a Flintstones WWE, or Tommy, when did they do that?
I think they did it a year or so before the Jetsons one.
Oh, okay. Where have I been?
Yep. But
It was 2015, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Flintstones one good, or was it shitty like the Jetsons?
It was. If you thought the Jetsons one was shitty, the Flintstones one was shittier, so.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. It was one of those where if you're a kid, you'll probably like it, but if you're an older fan, you probably won't like it. I mean, like, totally. The work rate of the Jetsons and the Flintstones probably didn't work where they would be able to compete with the top stars in the WWE today. However, I bet that Fred Flintstone could probably make a good career for himself in Chikara, so.
True story. I remember going to an FIP show down here in Florida, and unfortunately, it was one of the shows that wasn't taped for DVD, but in the crowd, there's these two fans that looked like Fred and Barney, and I remember Eric Stevens coming out, and Eric Stevens comes out. This is when he was a heel, and Fred and Barney stand up like, yeah, heckling, and Eric Stevens just looks at them for like 30 seconds, just like, what the fuck is this? And he just shakes his head in disgust and walks away.
Mm-hmm.
Those fans later on, I don't know what happened, but those fans later on, I don't know if it was the same show or not, or a later show. Those fans later on, Kendrick, aka Spanky, comes out, and he comes out like swinging something. He's completely pissed. I have no idea what happened, but those fans got ejected from the building, and everyone cheered that they got ejected. So I don't know what the hell happened there.
Well, that's one of the cases where you don't go to the Loyal Order of the Water Buffaloes before going to an FIP event.
Well, I asked Gabe what happened. He just looked at me and said nothing. So
Yeah.
whatever, probably some bullshit.
Yeah. But going into
the Jetsons. Sorry.
Oh, continue.
All I know is the Jetsons now, they're doing the dystopia. DC Comics is doing the dystopia on the Jetsons. And I think they did a dystopia on the Flintstones too, saying how the animals that were used as tools, how they live life. So
if you're going to do a dystopian Jetsons on it, just do what everybody's headcanon was, that the Jetsons and the Flintstones live simultanesely. And the Jetsons are rich people and the Flintstones are all the poor people.
Makes no sense, though, because in the Jetsons Flintstones movie, Elroy built the time machine.
Yeah, but Elroy also won so many hardcore titles, so it's not like he could build a time machine and do those. They could have it just be he thought he built a time machine and just built something that sent him down to this regular world.
There's a live-action Jetsons rumored to be coming down the pipelines. I wonder how that'll be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting now that we're technically in the future and all we got were faster cars and slightly more polluted air.
Yeah, and we do have some buildings that are built like the Jetsons, but it's still,
yeah,
it's there, but it's not.
Yeah, and it's also weird because the fact that we always take for granted the things that we do have, like even in the Jetsons era, do you think they would have, wait, you've got a whole computer that has everything at the palm of your hand and it can take video of you? And you use this to take pictures of your dicks and decide who you want to sleep with. That's all you
know this. Okay, you're gonna bring that up. You're gonna bring it up. People that take my brother one time took a dick pic and sent it to someone. And I just think, taking dick pics is some of the stupidest shit to do.
Yeah.
And I've said it before on the show, Tinder is stupid as well. Look, whatever. People basically use it. You might as well have called Tinder meet and fuck for starters. And I'll just say this: any motherfucker that decides to use, Tinder to try to hook up and stuff, you guys are stupid as hell. And whatever happened. Well, let me amend that. You're not stupid as hell. You're lonely. Let me amend that. Okay, you're not stupid as hell. That's being harsh. I understand you guys are lonely, but whatever happened to just going out and meeting people, face to face?
Simple. If you go out and meet people, you might have to say, wait a second, I might like someone who's not attractive, and that can't possibly happen. I'm a perfect human being, and I deserve a perfect human being.
I don't think like that. I don't think like that. I don't think like that. I've been attracted to many different types.
Yes, and that's really the thing on it, where people just vet things too much. It's just the whole problem of the internet and a whole thing where it's the problem with the internet is it can lead to a show like this where a guy from Rhode Island, a guy from Florida, and a guy from Virginia can make a great show on this one because of their shared love of the sports and of everything else. But it also means to a place where 50, 60 years ago, you had to be the best friend of the person who lived next door to you solely because they lived next door to you, and you had to find a way to do it. You had nothing in common. Who cares? You had to find a way to like them.
Right. Exactly. It's not a bad. It's not a bad thing. Technology is not a bad thing. So, like I said, I was watching The Wizard earlier before we went on the air, and I was looking at how different. The movie was made in 1989, but I was just looking at how different everything seemed back then, and part of the charm of back then is lost. But that's normal. That's normal human history. But I just believe that there's got to be a way to combine both the old and the new. I personally, I'm a firm believer in going out and meeting people rather than going out and meeting people if I'm looking for a date versus going on Tinder being, oh, this one looks hot, let's see. No.
Yes. And that really is the point, because you got to give everybody a chance on this one. And that's really the point on this one, where everybody's so vetted and so tribalized that it becomes, okay, this person seems like they have everything, but they think that this era of the show is better, and they prefer this pairing and not this one. I'm done. They're canceled. I'm never speaking to them again. And that doesn't work on this one. You have to find a way to get over your differences with people.
That's part of the problem. That's honestly part of the problem of what's been going on today, where everyone, it used to be, I think our tolerance as far as each other has reached, I'm not going to say an all-time low, but it's really down in the doldrums right now. And people make fun of millennials. People make fun of social justice warriors. People make fun of them for various things, such as trigger warnings or such as being oversensitive. I never bought into that. I always thought that they are the product. I always thought that people like that are the product of their environments, the product of their families. And you got to realize something. In America, I don't know what it's like in the rest of the world, but in the United States of America, half of the marriages end in divorce.
Yeah, and the other half don't end that great either, so.
What?
And the other half don't end that great either, so.
No, yeah, I mean, they're living miserably. And, I mean, if they grow up in a dysfunctional environment, and if it wasn't that, I have a theory that a lot of these kids a lot of these millennials, they were growing up, they were little kids in the 90s, and what was popular in the 90s? The popular shit that was going on in the 90s was everything was like in your face, loud, and extreme. And it's been proven that little kids cannot what's the word I'm looking for? It's been proven that kids cannot
like they get sensory overload from it, or what?
They get sensory overload. That's not what Roach, thank you. That's not what I'm looking for. It's not so much sensory overload. They can't register things like an adult can. So I mean, I almost have a theory that, you know, and I mean, this, you know, you could call me, I know, I don't really care what anyone says. I know I'm probably like, it could be far-fetched. I'm either very close to the truth or way out in left field. But I mean, I have this theory that because the 90s, everything that was popular was loud and in your face and everything was so extreme and quote unquote edgy. I'm thinking all these kids that grew up in that time in the 90s, you want to know why trigger warnings became such a big thing with the millennials? It's because I think there was sensory overload, or they couldn't register everything. And little kids need that safety. They need that shelter. And when you're pitching everything as like there's no shelter or anything, what do you expect's going to happen? Now, keep in mind, they didn't go through nothing compared to the motherfuckers. They did not go through nothing compared to what happened in the 90s with Serbia and Bosnia and Croatia and all that area. That was real problems. Do your history research on that.
Yeah, but that also ties to the thing where I think you're slightly way off when you think of what was big in the 80s and 90s and stuff. And,
I didn't say the 80s, I said the 90s.
Well, both of the eras on it, where you've got to remember what was also big in that era was the rise of teaching kids self-esteem, teaching them to feel that you're good for being you. And sometimes you've got to realize that maybe you didn't do something worth on this one, and you've got to keep working at it and gets to the point where you have something to be proud of. And he's too much self-esteem on that one, and eventually you have a whole generation of people who think, I am the greatest person in the history of the world. I am hot shit. Whatever I say goes. And if you don't do exactly what I say, you bow to me or you are evil. And they can't understand any possibility of anything in society not bowing down to them. And when they get something like that, they think, this is absolutely terrible. They're supposed to bow down to me. I'm a special little snowflake, and that means that I get everything I want.
You can argue that. I hate to go there, but you can argue that we got a president that's like that right now.
Exactly. And that's the point where they've got too many people like that who think they deserve more than they do on it. And that's really what they talk about on this one, because let's make it clear. We're a pro-social justice show. Everyone deserves to have equality.
Yes.
The problem is when you put that as one of the other things of the social media Olympics, where if you use that as your event and you get, I'm more offended than you are, and that means I'm a better person than you. for doing it, and then you have the real problems.
I can't. That makes my head spin. Just what you're saying there. I mean, about oh, I'm more offended. Then that means I'm a better person than you. That makes my head spin. It's like where are people's logic in that?
Simple. If I'm more offended by this than you, then I care more about other people than you, and that means I'm better than you.
Jeez. Roach, you got any thoughts on this?
All I know is I'm not better than anyone.
Exactly.
Me neither.
I know I'm trash.
Yeah. We know we suck, and that's what you can get from us. We suck, but in a good way.
Word. But, I mean, yeah, funny. I'll give you an anecdote. There was one day, back when I was a teenager, there's this one guy I knew. His name was Tim. Very cool guy. I don't know what happened to him. Prince of a guy. Tim, if you're listening to this, hey, Joey says hi. I miss the days where we used to play basketball together. Anyway, there was one day where, we were playing basketball and, he was, sometimes I get very passionate when I play basketball. Sometimes I get emotional and, I just play with my heart on my sleeve. But, he was lollygagging it and he said, Joey, you know what? I mean, you think you're good, but I mean, I can stop you right now, to kill your self-esteem. So the guy starts turning it on. He plays like fucking Kobe Bryant style defense on me. And he was thinking he was holding back because he thought he would hurt my feelings doing that. And I said, and so, yeah, he wound up blowing me out. And I said, no, I want you to play like that all the time. I want you to play me hard on D all the time. Because, look, that's the only way you can get better. Let me fucking take my bumps and bruises. Let me go back to the lab. Let me study. Let me figure out what I did wrong. And let me see if I can build something better and improve. And, I mean, when I hear you, Tommy, when I hear you talking about the whole self-esteem movement, it just reminded me of that anecdote. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't we see people just think like that? I wonder if we see more people actually thinking like that. And this is just a stereotype, the whole self-esteem deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me. Like, I mean, obviously a lot of this is like the past generations are always going to generalize about the current ones. Like the boomers were probably generalized back when they were kids. Generation X got generalized when they were kids. Millennials are getting generalized now. Whatever the next generation is, whatever they're calling that, is going to get generalized.
Personally, I don't think the millennials are assholes at all. I just think...
Yeah, neither do I.
I think they're just victims of their circumstances, and they were mistaught a lot of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really the point on it, where most of this stuff is still the benefit, where this generation does care about a lot of things, and they are important, but at the same time, there's also the case where there's this I'm better than you viewpoint, and whoever's the most of something is the best person and thus wins. And that's the bigger issue right now.
Sounds like an offshoot of the 80s theory where he who dies with the most toys wins.
Yeah, except it's basically
toys for being offended.
Not just offended, but there's plenty of different ways to be the better person and think that, okay, I have this, that makes me better. I have the most toys, that makes me better. I'm the most popular, that makes me better. I'm the most famous, that makes me better, and so on.
Aye. We're getting really sidetracked here.
Yeah. That's one of the problems of year-end shows, where there's not as much wrestling to talk, so we have to let people see us based on other stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. I am enjoying it. I love, shooting from the hip. I love, that we talk about other things besides wrestling. I love wrestling, but there's more to life than wrestling. Life's too short and precious. You there?
Yeah.
Okay, just pregnant pause there for a minute. I mean, I was just saying, I love wrestling. Life's too short and precious. If you don't stop, to sort of paraphrase the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, if you don't stop and smell the roses, the world will pass you by.
Yeah. And that goes too.
Tommy, you were very profound when you're talking about more people should instead of trying to be the best of the bunch. You were very profound when you said we should try to be like Ferris Bueller, friends of everyone.
Exactly. Because
that's one of the most profound things I've ever heard you say. And you've said some very profound things, but that's one of the best.
Yeah, because really it does go down to you have to find a way to deal with everybody. And most of the differences in this world they're just skin deep. They don't matter enough, and
right.
try to find common ground with them. And once you do that, that's when you'll get the peace and the utopia we want.
That's exactly right. I mean, once upon a time, the baby boomers were trying to do that, and then they just got distracted by money. They turned into yuppies. That's the generalization. That wasn't everybody. But, you know, when I always hear an old head cursing out the millennials, I said this a few weeks ago, and I'll say it again. I think to myself, oh, please, if you guys were young again, you'd be doing the same shit, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah, and that's really the point where at least when this generation's trying to save the world, they're trying to save the world by doing actual things instead of smoking a bunch of pot, having a bunch of random sex, and listening to 60s music.
Well, now they're vaping, and now they're listening to trap.
Hey, there's some real things on this one from those things. Extentacion died for your sins, man.
Not a fan. I mean, I don't really get into that stuff. I mean, I will advertise a channel though. And you know what? We're talking about, we want to get people to sponsor us. You guys want some real badass music? There's a video channel called New Retro Wave on YouTube. I cannot recommend that channel enough. Mm-hmm. You want some great music of today? New Retro Wave is where it's at.
Yep. That's the please give us money of the day of New Retro Wave, because we like money.
Dude, it's not so much I'm trying to beg for money. I'm not trying to beg. It's not so much begging for money as much as I actually like them.
Yeah, I know, but it's easier to keep the image. So we've got to think of our brand too. So,
well, like I said a few weeks ago, I have no brand. I am who I am.
Yep, and that's a very good brand choice. So
I'm like Timmy Duncan.
Yeah,
I'm like Timmy Duncan. Amongst all the hype, I just put my head down, go to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Like always contended.
Do you know, like just get it done, and whatever happens, you know.
Yes,
absolutely.
And apparently, Enzo Amore commented on his Survivor Series appearance and why he did it.
Mm-hmm.
He was at the Survivor Series this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
What happened was that during the Survivor Series thing, he got his thing in the crowd, and during one of the matches, just before the Cruiserweight title match, he jumped up and acted a fool, injured some random fan, got taken down by one of the security, and was banned from Staples Center for life.
I got to see the video of that. Did fans give him a huge pop?
No. But it was still a sad thing on this one, because with that event, all Enzo Amore had to do was act like a normal human being for just 10 minutes of his life. And then if he did it during the Cruiserweight title match, suddenly he could have been looking at the single greatest angle of 2018, an angle of wrestler comes back to win the title that he never lost, but it's in real life. That could have been so amazing and made him a star, and he blew it because he couldn't act like a human being for 10 minutes.
Well, Enzo Amore, I mean, he's a fame. Sorry, Johnny.
No, you go ahead.
Enzo Amore is a fame chaser. I mean, once upon a time, he was an up-and-coming strongman slash power lifter in Jersey. His name's Eric Arndt. Go watch some videos of him when he was a power lifter. He's strong as an ox for his size. And he just, unfortunately, he got seduced by the glitz and glamour of the WWE, and here we are.
Yep. You gotta learn how to take fame the right way.
Right.
Also,
well, I will say this much, at least. At least this time he didn't try to do a rap song based on it.
Yeah. But that's really, you got to learn how to take fame well. And also, there is nothing good that can happen from driving into Phoenix and going to do cocaine with Instagram models and random fame whores as well. You're gonna
He's
end up
still doing that shit after the scare with the girl from Kentucky?
No, I'm referring to the first time he did it. So.
Oh, I was about to say, you gotta be shitting me if he's still doing that.
Mm-hmm. It wouldn't shock me if he was, but I don't know if he could get the opportunity to do things like that without the WWE. It's the same thing with Dolph Ziggler and the fact that he stays in because he knows that it's been 3 years, WWE starved for content, and they won't give Dolph Ziggler's ass a stand-up special. That's because even WWE knows Dolph Ziggler sucks ass at stand-up.
Is there any video of him doing stand-up?
There is a little bit of video of him doing stand-up, but most of his jokes are stuff like, okay, can I get a show of hands who's single here? Well, that's easier than Tinder.
Well, I mean, why don't they do my idea with them? Like, have him get knocked on the head and think that he's his Southpaw Regional Wrestling character. That would be interesting.
Yep. Well, if they're going to repackage anyone to Southpaw Regional Wrestling, they should just do it for Gallows and Anderson. They're on the way out. You're not going to get much out of them. Shit, let them be Tex Ferguson and Chad Too Bad.
Okay, baby.
Yep. And this way,
it's like Luke Gallows. He did that character before WWE, except instead of Tex, he called him Sex Ferguson.
Well, of course. But this way, you do that, you get it done, and it loses its power for all elite wrestling when they go there.
Right. I mean, no, you really want to say fuck you to him. Have him be Festus again.
That would be good. But yes, with this, when it goes for the first of the year-end awards, with Enzo Amore getting the Chris Benoit Award for Most Sobering Reminder We're Assholes for Caring About This award.
Well, Enzo, let's be fair. Enzo was a good character. He just, like I said, he took it too far.
Yes. Well, that's really the problem.
There's no off switch for him. I mean,
the big problem is that Enzo Amore lived his gimmick. And you can see why living that gimmick is a very bad thing.
There's gimmicks you can live, but I mean, outrageous gimmicks like that, if you try to live all the time, your ass is going to get in trouble.
Yes.
Although you'll have a ton of interesting stories.
Yeah. And it's weird on this one because even in 2013, during his rise in NXT where he was a star, it seemed like Enzo Amore was going to be the next DDP. And that's weird because DDP lived his gimmick. He always did that. But no one has a bad word to say about Diamond Dallas Page. They think
DDP has good intelligence.
He's great with his DDP yoga stuff. So it was a world of difference there, and all the same things could have been seen there.
Well, it's because he actually did the class work for his G certification. Mm-hmm. But Enzo Amore didn't realize that you kind of have to teach that.
Yeah, but that was also the problem because, remember, it was a certification, and you can't teach that, so the G stuff was all just paperwork. Go down to City Hall, get the G files, and you can be a certified G in 7 to 10 business days.
Oh. Certified G, I mean, it's...
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it says something.
So is Booker T a certified OG?
Probably. But it still says something, even if it was those. It just goes to the whole problem this year where you have Enzo Amore freak out and go down this way. You have Big Cass ruin his career and go from hot prospect and future champion to fired in less than a year for it after trying to get her back and being accosted miserably for it. And then you have James Ellsworth showing his penis to 16-year-old girls.
What a maroon.
We've got to question, what type of person does Carmella attract?
Well, she's with R-Truth now, and now she looks like the WWE's version of Ariana Grande.
Yeah, But then R-Truth is also crazy as well. So
okay, what kind of person does Carmelo attract? 2 words: Chris Chan.
I don't know, because I think that Chris Chan would probably want someone like Carmella, but they would have a restraining order on him in about 20 seconds.
I don't think a new Tourette. Unfortunately, I don't think a new Tourette's guy video came out this year.
Yep.
Bob Saget.
Mm-hmm. One of the shames on this one where they keep going on it, where there's so many great names from the internet in the old era that we forget about now because they just don't make anything. And we touched on it before things went awry last week.
Like what?
Before things went awry last week for the internet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're sorry, fans. We had technical difficulties.
Yep, that's the type of things that happen when you're all broke, so. Mm-hmm. But that one goes with this one. And the next one we have is the most underrated performer of the year. Your thoughts, guys, of who would be most underrated?
Can this count for the Indies too and New Japan?
Absolutely.
This is going to sound weird, but Kevin Killer Cross.
And your reasoning for that?
Because I feel that this guy could. You see how Brock Lesnar is in the WWE? Cross is how he should. Kevin Killer Cross acts exactly like how Lesnar should be acting. On top of that, I mean, he's a good, solid wrestler. I mean, I like how he could play a vicious bodyguard. He could play a sociopath, and he can also play a cult leader, all equally well.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I have to agree. And plus, I mean, the fact that he actually shows up on a regular basis puts him miles ahead of Lesnar in that regard.
Right. I mean, imagine Killer Cross in that position where Brock Lesnar is. Imagine Kevin Killer Cross versus Roman Reigns. Imagine Cross versus Braun Strowman.
Yeah.
You know, these would be good matches. Hell, I mean, I'd love to see Cross somehow get to New Japan because he would be the next big great foreign gaijin heel in Japan.
Even then, it's stuff where WWE is apparently very interested, and you can see why, because he goes there, he could be a very big star, and he has the TNA stuff, so NXT will take to him. So screw Lars Sullivan. I mean, imagine those vignettes for Cross, or
from the people who brought you EC3.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to be the problem on it because, again, EC3 it worked great in TNA, and you had this dynamic character of the stuck-up nephew of the owner thinks he deserves everything because he's so rich and deserves it. And then it went to NXT, and it became, hey, look, it's Impact's favorite guy, EC3, but he's in NXT. Yay!
EC3 is either going to want. I think they're going to try to make him the new $1 Million Man or something.
Honestly, I could see it because this seems like it's going to be the reverse of Bobby Roode on this one,
or dare I say it, try this on for size. Mm-hmm. He goes to SmackDown considering Daniel Bryan has become, aka Bryan Danielson, has become an asshole. Imagine EC3 showing up as a face challenging Daniel Bryan / Bryan Danielson.
I don't know if he'd be the great city of Tulsa, Oklahoma against him, so.
What does Tulsa, Oklahoma have to do with anything?
It's from their NXT time as NXT rookie.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was going to say, isn't EC3 legit from, like, Ohio or something?
Yeah.
Cleveland?
Yeah.
Boy, he probably pitched a bitch when LeBron left.
I don't know. I think from all signs on it, the first time it was those ones, but the second time it became, yeah, you won us a title. That's all you want. Go in peace now, so.
But, you know, I'll call it right now. In 4 years, he'll come back to Cleveland with his son playing alongside him. Calling that now.
I don't know if Cleveland's going to be bad enough to take to get his son. So
they'll find a way. Trust me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question for these ones would be best heel of the year. And this is going to be an interesting one because we're in an era where the best heel usually gets beloved as a babyface for being a good heel. So, who's your picks on this?
You want to go there, Enzo Amore?
Well, Enzo Amore was more last year, remember, where he only had about 2 weeks of wrestling this year. So,
okay, let me think about this. Roach, what do you get? Who you got?
I'm going to need to think about it myself.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd put one of the hot takes as a possible best heel on it with the Iconics for it. Think about it. Of them, they're one of the few ones where everybody recognizes, yeah, this is a good, fun act and we like it. And they recognize, okay, this is okay. But they know that they're not good enough to be, they aren't supposed to be really good. So they dog it just enough so they seem bad, but just enough so that you know that they know what they're doing. And they manage to be, okay, we're just bad enough so that you'll still boo us, but not so good that you're going to start cheering us instead.
I just had a funny thought about them. Go on, I'm sorry.
Okay, go for it.
I know they're Aussies, but imagine them acting like the old English duo Shampoo.
Mm-hmm. I can see it happening, so.
I could just see them doing a cover of we're in trouble from the Power Rangers movie. Or, barring that, turn them face, have them cover Boomfot Headbutt.
Yeah. Those could be interesting ideas for them, so. And considering they need gimmicks for the tag team division, it would help there as well, so.
Well, I don't know how Jackie Blake and I think the other name was Caroline Askew. I don't know what they think of it, but.
Well, considering that most of the time, if you have a wrestling gimmick based on you, that's a big honor, so.
Well, Harvey Whippleman was originally going to have his gimmick based on Pee Wee Herman, but
yeah,
they changed that fast because people kept chanting Pee Wee at him.
Yeah, but they also needed to know this one that they had to base it on Ted Knight since Harvey Whippleman was another inventor of G-Funk, so.
Teddy Knight, man, that guy was Will Ferrell before Will Ferrell. People, you need to research Ted Knight.
Mm-hmm.
He was a countrywide treasure.
Yeah.
Was a hardcore World War II vet. Got his start in Hollywood as a security guard in the movie Psycho. Was the iconic, no pun intended, he was the iconic Ted Baxter in the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and then helped to introduce the world to Jim J. Bullock and Too Close for Comfort. Plus, he invented G-Funk. This guy is a national treasure, everybody. Research him.
Exactly. So
Carrie Askew was the name of the second one from Shampoo.
Mm-hmm. So then you go to one of the more bigger problems of them. Washed up wrestler of the year. This one would go to who is the most visibly washed up performer that does not belong in the business, and why is this Tamina Snuka?
Because they haven't changed her gimmick to Taylor Dane yet.
I think I think even changing her gimmick to Taylor Dane probably wouldn't work on this one because there's a level of washed up that you don't usually go with on it, where there's usually some semblance of benefit for everybody in it, but I can't see one thing that Tamina brings to the table at this point in time. You can't say she's good in the ring. She's not. Can't say she's over. She's not. Can't say she's a good monster. Nia Jax, it may not be very good in the ring, but she's at least bigger than everybody, and you can always get a good match out of. They're so much bigger than this person. How the hell are they going to beat him? So at least Nia Jax serves a purpose. You can't say that she's and that she's got a second generation lineage because Jimmy Snook is an unperson after they found out that he probably murdered Nancy Argentino. She's not even that hot, so you don't even have something to look at. There's literally no reason for her to be on TV right now.
I don't know what to say. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah. That
Put
really,
it like that, jeez.
mm-hmm. Yeah, like even people who are kind of on their bad ones, like the Colon brothers, they're at least a very talented tag team, and you can absolutely use them as jobbers. There's always a place for a team like that who's is good, but they're
you using Nia Jackson, Tamina as jobbers.
And I'm talking about the Colones.
The clones.
They may not be over, and they may not ever be over, but they're very talented.
They were over with that come to Puerto Rico gimmick, and weren't they over when they went under masks for a while?
For a little bit, but by now it's pretty much
what was their gimmick under masks? I forget.
They were matadors. Because
matadors, basically what Lucha House Party is now.
No, I think that the Lucha House Party are just 3 luchadors, so
fair enough.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it seems like it's a problem on this one, and there's a lot of people who seemed washed up on this one, but there's not that much washed up out there, so.
How about if you want to talk about washed up, what about your random old 80s wrestler that's working hole in the wall indies?
Well,
but that's
honestly,
charming in a way. That's charming in a way. So
yeah, I'm not really going to give a problem to people working hole in the wall indies because, in my opinion, you have to be on a major scene for it to count as washed up.
What's a Honky Tonk Man doing these days?
Probably hole in the wall indies because at least the guy knows what he does. Show up, do the Honky Tonk Man shtick, never leave his feet, get a pinfall, make fit $200 or $300 in Polaroids and autographs. Do it again the next night and somewhere else.
And Honky Tonk Man's fucking hilarious if you listen to his shoots. He had a podcast a long time ago. I don't know if he still has it, but Honky Tonk Man in shoot mode is hilarious.
Yeah. And that really works on it because that's one of those careers that you want to go into as Honky Tonk Man going into this indies. You had people like Jerry Lawler still working matches on the indies for it.
Lawler's his cousin, but they don't get along well.
And you have people like Greg Valentine having his career as president of the Men Who Look Like Old Lesbians Club.
Dude, I saw a guy in the subway. I saw a guy that looked exactly like Greg the Hammer Valentine, had the same mullet and all.
Did you see the dog groomer who was her wife?
No, I actually looked at it and I'm like, that fucking mullet looks badass. I want to get my hair cut like that. No joke.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But my hair's brownish gray, so it wouldn't be a blonde mullet, so.
Yes.
But anyway, no, I was just thinking about, it'd be funny to hear Jim Cornette and Honky Tonk Man argue with each other.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened on some shoot interview because those guys will show up at the opening of an envelope if you pay them cash. So why is
fuck, they did a goddamn shoot. RF Video or somebody did a goddamn shoot with Balls Mahoney and New Jack arguing with each other for 2 hours? I'd pay this. How about doing Honky Tonk and Jim Cornette arguing with each other for 2 hours? Yeah.
I mean, if Honky Tonk Man did a thing where he agreed to do a shoot with Raven that was just reading down the DVD VR sleaze thread.
That was beautiful.
Yes. If you're willing to do that, you'll do whatever it goes for it. So
that was awesome. And is the DVD VR thread still going to this day?
No, DVD VR has quickly distanced themselves from that thread forever.
Aw. Mm-hmm. That's a shame.
Yes.
There was all kinds of. I remember that thread and it was hilarious.
Yep, I remember putting up random fake stuff in that thread many, many times.
I should have joined the party, but I was like, my luck, I'll get in trouble somehow, so I didn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, Yeah, I was gonna say another old hat that's funny, Jamie Dundee in shoot interviews. He is rolling on the floor funny too.
Yeah, it's surprising you don't have more stuff on him. He was a wrestler. He was a fuck up. He also did work for Jerry Springer.
Yep, I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, you'd think that you'd have amazing stories for it, and that he'd be on the shoot.
He had some interesting stories. When he did a shoot with Wolfie D, when they did PG-13 All Grown Up the shoot, they had interesting stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you'd think that more people would try to book him for him.
Shit, I mean, I'm waiting for Kendrick London Part 3 on shoots. Both their shoot videos were funny. I want to see Part 3.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get that as long as Kendrick seems to have a career in WWE, and we probably won't because I think Kendrick doesn't want to spend time letting people know that he's a Sandy Hook for apologist on this one. That's
sorry.
Yeah, that's what Ronda Rousey can do, but not Kendrick.
Yeah, I thought, like, I was listening to one of the shows that I wasn't on, and I was hearing you guys talk about how Kendrick might have been in trouble and might be on his way out because he did something, but he was on SmackDown this week, even though he was just there congratulating Mustafa Ali.
Yeah, I don't know if he'd be in trouble on it because there doesn't seem to be any reasons for it. He seems to have gotten off weed on it, so the only problems would be if people got mad at what he said in his shoot interviews, because once you pretty much say that the Illuminati is a thing and you are a Holocaust denier, you know someone's going to complain about that.
Well, I know that Paul London's probably persona non grata because of what he said in the first shoot about Vince. He was like, "I'll be happy when he's dead," and Kendrick was just like whistling and just trying to look away when he said that.
Yeah, but keep in mind that Lars Sullivan's getting a big push after saying that, yeah, he jerked off to Stephanie McMahon. So I don't think it's one thing about Vince McMahon that's always been good. He'll forgive anybody in the world if it can make him money. Like,
something I thought of, like looking at Stephanie, is it just me or does she seem like she's morphing into looking like what Bayley's older sister would look like?
It seems possible there. So
I don't want to. I mean, she was born in 1976. Bayley was born in 1989, so I can't say mother. If I did, I'd get fucking bitch slapped hard by her like Akane Tendo used to beat the shit out of Ranma all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does work on it because they do have some similar features on it, but I don't think that Stephanie McMahon has the same career in commercials that Bayley did. So
yeah, wait, come again about Bayley?
Yeah, commercial history.
What did she do commercial wise?
The clock strikes 6:30, babe. Time to head for golden light. It's a good time for the great taste dinner at McDonald's.
Oh, come on.
I remember that jingle. Was she legit in one of those commercials?
I thought that it was her who did this. Who was the singing it?
Oh, I don't know. That's not her. I don't know, but I remember that jingle from like old 80s McDonald's commercials. And come to think of it, remember all those commercials in McDonald's in the 80s where they had a story with them too? And then I remember Dave Chappelle making fun of the Calvin commercials.
Yeah.
Chappelle making fun of the Calvin commercials for McDonald's was hilarious.
Of course,
yeah, I mean, I was looking at Stephanie and I'm picturing her with that side ponytail, and it's like, shit, she would look just like Bayley. She would look like Bayley's older sister. I'm picturing Stephanie basically with the 80s Valley Girl side ponytail and a pink sweater looking like Jennifer Beals from Flashdance. And I'm just kind of like, Come to think of it, forget that. Now I'm imagining Courtney Rush looking like Jennifer Beals from Flashdance.
Yep.
Now I'm imagining Courtney Rush and Allie looking both like Jennifer Beals from Flashdance, or looking like two girls from Breakin' and dancing to "She's a Maniac," that song.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why my mind goes in the directions it goes, but There
Yep.
you go, people.
Yep. That would work because we almost had a replacement song of the week on these ones. If you kept going on, people look like Jennifer Beals in Flashdance. So
Jennifer Beals was hot in that movie.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you look at her now, she still looks hot.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how Jessica Alba tried to be her in Honey,
Mm-hmm.
and then come to think of it, like J-Lo was basically Jennifer Beals. J-Lo tried to look like her too. I mean, Jennifer Beals was a very influential babe.
Yep. Well, that one just goes with
And
it.
yet, the funny thing is, she was only known for Flashdance, and then I think she did a movie in 1989 called Vampire Kiss. Although I think she was in like that Showtime show, The L Word or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think so, or at least I don't know for to be honest. So. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, but yeah, I mean, as far as heels go, yeah, the Iconics work. I was gonna guess Becky Lynch, but I think
Becky Lynch basically became a bigger baby face by turning heel than she ever would have been as a face. So
there seems to be some, especially with her wearing a T-shirt saying the man. There's like some very, very bizarre androgynous overtones with her.
Well, it's mostly the fact that at least with her, she's saying the man like, yeah, I'm the top on this one, and that's the whole point with it for Ronda, where she's saying, nope, I'm not, and where she's actually getting more of the bullshit first and saying, no, it's not good for it.
I want to see Ronda Rousey come out dressed like Android 18 once, at least once.
I don't know. I don't think Rousey has the right hair color for Android 18 for the most part. So, but at least
Android 18 has
Dragon Ball Z
hair. Rousey has dark blonde, giant platinum. There you go.
Yeah.
But what were you saying?
Well, she is a Dragon Ball Z fan, so she'd probably do it. So
she could be 18. I'll be 17.
Mm-hmm.
You have the New Day come out as Saiyans again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the New Day versus me and Rousey is the androids, and we'll get Braun Strowman to be Android 16.
Yeah. You'd probably also need to have Drake Maverick to finally get one of the authors of pain to be the one who turns people into chocolate.
Oh God, no! I mean, you know what? I almost wonder if Majin Buu was based off Yokozuna.
It would be very possible, but sumo wrestling is so big in Japan, it could have just been generic sumo wrestler.
I saw this old picture of Giant Baba teaching Earthquake, a young John Tenta, how to do a headlock, and someone made the funniest comment. Someone said young Earthquake looked like Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
I could absolutely buy that. Heck, that would
it don't matter. None of this matters.
Yep.
What'd you say, Johnny?
I was doing like, and his opponent. It don't matter. None of this matters.
Yep. The sad thing is,
I mean,
if Tenta lived, he probably
did look like Carl.
What?
I said Quake did kind of look like Carl.
Yeah. So going further on this one, we have the gimmick of the year and what
PCO.
PCO. Yep. I could see that happening because although I would say that PCO is probably also going to get some love for comeback of the year as
I was going to say he'd win that easily too.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe both of those.
Yeah. Because that was just amazing on this one. A year ago, no one would have thought that PCO would ever be even a big thing. And people saw him at the Janela show because it was a joke like, haha, he's going to face Quebecer Pierre. And then it's like, holy shit, PCO is awesome. And then by the end of the year, the guy signs with Ring of Honor. Nobody knew about the PCO gimmick before he fought Janela? Well, with Janela, it was like, remember, at Janela shows, the whole thing is there's also that kind of irony, kind of wrestling type of thing where it's like, I want to meet him. I want to meet him. Yeah. Where Janela puts on, I want to wrestle this guy, so I'm going to book him. Hey, me,
Janela and Ryan, a meeting of the Joeys. That would be a podcast in and of itself.
Exactly. Hopefully we can get it. Remember, you can find us at Whacked Out Wrestling.
Is Janela going to be healthy for Spring Break 3?
I don't know if he's going to be healthy for Spring Break, but most of that's basically him being the booker anyway. So,
but that's what I'm saying. Is he going to be cleared by WrestleMania?
I don't know off the top of my head, and it's going to be weird on this one because if Janela is cleared on it, would he be able to do it? Because you've got to assume that All Elite Wrestling is going to want him, and if he didn't get the broken leg, TNA was going to sign him. So.
What about Penelope Ford? They had to sign her too, right?
Well, reports are that last week, Janela said that he and Ford had broken up. So there's that one, and there's also facts that Ford was at the last WWE tryouts. So there's a very strong chance that Ford may be signed in 2019. How long were
her and Janela together though? Like 10 years?
No clue, but.
So Ford was at the last NXT tryout?
Yeah.
When was this?
This was a couple weeks ago as well. And
who was in the tryout?
I think that, let me check. Joey or John?
Yeah.
Oh, you have this. Can you get the last NXT tryout?
Hold on, I think
Tommy, I got a question about the NXT tryouts. They seems like all of them that tried out, like I know there was a story about Triple H saying he just wanted people like that had 10 plus years of indie experience or former pro athletes. Has there been anybody out there that has tried out from nothing or tried it all?
Off the top of my head, so.
Like, I mean, have some athletic background, but nothing like, no like credentials, like the indie guys or athletes.
I'm not 100% sure on it.
I seriously, even though I'm almost close to 40, I seriously want to try to do an NXT tryout just to say I did it and just for shits. I would not expect shit to happen. I would just want to do it to say I did it and just see what happens. Mm-hmm. I would not expect a damn thing from it. If something happened from it, then it would be gravy.
Oh, it had guys like Eric Spicely, a former middleweight from the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Cal Bloom, the son of Wayne Bloom, aka Bo Beverly.
Nice.
An Olympic sprinter, Emmanuel Matadi.
Mm-hmm.
Heba Ali, who was featured on the 5th season of Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge.
Cool.
Metric Belton, who played wide receiver for the USC Gamecocks. That's SC as in South Carolina in this case. So, Olivia Hassler, a former gymnast and cheerleader who's been wrestling in the Indies since late 2014.
But that was Penelope Ford, so keep that in mind.
Right, yes.
What's her real name?
Olivia Hassler, so.
That's her real name? I thought her real name was legit Penelope Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah Bloney, a bodybuilder and cast member of Floribama Shore.
Oh, goddamn.
Which means that if Dixie Carter were still running Impact Wrestling, they'd have to get someone who is also on Floribama Shore and put that segment on opposite Floribama Shore.
Yes.
Dear God.
Randy Bino, who is an Ontario-based heavyweight wrestler with a background in amateur wrestling, Muay Thai, boxing, judo, etc., and he trained under Santino Marella and Rip Rogers.
Nice.
Clayton Chambers, who trained under Booker T and is the current TV champion of Reality of Wrestling under the name Van Harrison.
Okay.
Jonathan Cruz, who was trained by the Dudley Boys and is an assistant trainer at the Florida location of the Team 3D Academy.
Oh, no shit.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Alexis Evans, a 23-year-old from Georgia with a background in rugby and bodybuilding.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle Hardy, aka Marty Daniels, who has held the women's championship for UCW Zero in Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm.
Latasha Harris, better known as Tasha Steeles, who studied wrestling at the IWF Wrestling Training School and Team Adams Academy, and is the current Chaotic Wrestling Women's Champion.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Howard, aka Daniel Eads, from Evansville, Indiana, an independent wrestler who's competed throughout the Midwest and Southeast United States.
Mm-hmm.
Lenz Kamba, a 6'3", 224-pound former collegiate grappler.
Mm-hmm.
Vincent Lawrence, former basketball player, now professional bodybuilder, who's currently training for the ring in Miami. And
what was that last name?
Lawrence.
No, the basketball bodybuilder.
Yeah, Vincent Lawrence.
Okay.
Tina Rivas, who is a 26-year-old weightlifter residing in Seattle, who was actually also recently announced as a cast member of the upcoming Titan Games.
Oh, cool.
So,
anyone else?
Oh, yeah, a few people. Kenny Marquez, a.k.a. Jake Atlas, a trainee of the Santino Brothers Wrestling Academy. Team captain of a
national... got his ass kicked in Impact?
I don't know.
He might have been, so.
Team captain of his college's nationally ranked cheerleading squad, and featured as a WWE hopeful in an episode of Undercover Boss.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb March, who is a two-time NCAA national qualifier who wrestled at Kent State. Josh McNeil, who was a former Under Armour All-American in high school and was a member of the 2018 roster of the Carolina Cobras in the National Arena League.
Okay.
Luis Gino Medina, 22 years old, 8 years of training under Booker T in Texas, and three-time Reality of Wrestling heavyweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Isaac Melton, former semi-pro football player and Marine Corps veteran, trained by Robert Gibson, and he's wrestled in the Indies under the name Ike Cross.
Mm-hmm.
Jake Metz, who played 4 years professional football, including the NFL and the Arena Football League.
Mm-hmm.
Tahuti Miles, a karate fighter and former Division I football player who served in the U.S. Army and who attended a WWE tryout in June of 2017. Alexander Morehouse, who has a former collegiate cheerleader who has gone on to compete in Olympic weightlifting events, including the 2015 American Open. And I'm sorry if I'm getting any of these names wrong, but EJ Nduka, who played pro football for 4 years and currently trains in mixed martial arts and is a professional bodybuilder. Jason Osei, who played football at Baylor University and Texas A&M and has trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing, and judo.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Parsons, a pro football player and former collegiate powerlifter. Actually, a surprisingly large number of powerlifters on this list so far.
Well, yeah, because powerlifting is one of those sports that really transfers to wrestling really well. So
that is true. I'm just noticing there's a lot of them. Jamal Pritchett, an independent wrestler who competes under the name Jamal King. That's Kyng, in case you're trying to look him up.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Poulos, 6'5", 275-pound bodybuilder and actor from Florida. Forrest Rhines, an 18-year wrestling veteran who has wrestled throughout North America and Asia as Cooley Ayo, and I think we actually brought him up last week or the week before because that ring name does sound familiar to me, and I Feel like we mentioned him before.
Yeah.
Okay. Ian Michael Simon from Scottsdale, Arizona, actor, strength coach, and strongman competitor. And he also played as a linebacker and fullback in collegiate and pro football.
Okay.
Courtney Levings, who has placed in the top 10 at national bikini competitions and won an overall title. Emily Lugman, track and field athlete, placed first in the heptathlon at the Pacific West Conference Championships in 2014 as a junior at Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego. Haley Jade Poston, a Nashville-based fitness instructor and model, also a competitive cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
Second-generation wrestler and former figure skater Carissa Rivera, who wrestles as Carissa the Cherokee Warrior and recently saw action against Lacey Evans on NXT TV. Her father wrestled under the name Steve King.
She did what?
She fought Evans in a squash match, so.
Yeah. And finally on the list...
Did you beat Lacey Evans?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was the squash victim in the match, so.
Oh, okay.
Right. And finally, Lady Frost, Brittany Ray Steeding, a competitive gymnast turned wrestler from Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How much do those tryouts cost again, or are they invite only?
I think there's $1,000 to get in the tryout, but you have to be invited as well.
If I get $1,000, I'm going to try it just for the shits and giggles.
Yep.
And like I said, I won't expect nothing, and if something happens, that's just gravy.
Yeah.
But what
hey,
the
worst
fuck?
case scenario, you'll have a story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. In this case scenario, you get into WWE. Which can also be worst case scenario, depending on if you're one of those elite fans or something like that.
I am an elite fan, so.
Yeah. But that goes into the next question of promotion of the year. And this is going to be a very questionable one on this one because honestly, it's kind of weird where I might say the hot take on this one and would say All In might be promotion of the year just because they were able to sell out 10,000 seats in 38 minutes just on the backs of Cody's going to fight Aldis and fuck WWE. And that is, and the show itself wasn't bad as well. So considering that New Japan seems to be cooling off a little bit, Impact is still rising, but not there. And WWE was really mediocre this year. That might be enough to get him the title.
I can see the argument. I can absolutely see the argument.
Yeah. So that actually does help with this one, with the Elite having these ones where it's going to be a question what they can do with All Elite Wrestling on this one because they were able to fill out one seat and have people coming from all around. Now the real test is if you can make a real promotion out of it.
Who will the booker be for All In? AEW.
Well, there's going to be a few. I'm assuming Cody Rhodes is going to be one of the bookers, and the Young Bucks will probably have stuff on it. But they did just announce today that BJ Whitmer has left Ring of Honor to go to All Elite Wrestling, and Whitmer was.
Wait a minute, BJ Whitmer was still in ROH all this time?
He was a backstage guy and one of their top guys in promoting. So.
Has he been still wrestling or been a backstage guy for a long time?
He's been a backstage guy primarily, but I think he wrestled once or twice for him. So,
is Whitmer going to be a wrestler or what?
More than likely, he's going to be a backstage guy, which will also be very interesting because it's pretty well known that Women of Honor is really bad and basically a dating service for him. So. If Whitmer left on this one, that's a good sign. Kelly Klein's going with him, and that takes away their new Women of Honor champion. So
shit, maybe AEW becomes the new hot indie.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that if something happens on it, it's going to be the new hot indie. The big question is, can it get to that level that
And
Impact?
it's based out of Jacksonville. I hope a lot of their shows get taped in Orlando or Tampa.
Yeah, I think they're planning to go to other cities and arenas. So I think they don't want to just be a hot indie. They want to go at. They're going after the throne. So
Right, no, but I'm saying it wouldn't surprise me if they have a handful of shows in those cities.
of course, so it's going to be very.
Oh, I mean, they're based out of Jacksonville. It wouldn't surprise me if they have a ton of shows in Atlanta.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm assuming they're going to get some shows in Florida, some shows in Atlanta, some shows in Jacksonville on it. And it's going to be very interesting. So
Let's hope it's either something's going to legit happen or this is all a work.
Well, honestly, I think if it's a work, then they wouldn't have all the trademarks in place on it. They wouldn't be doing everything here just to go for those ones. And it's going to be very interesting if that happens, because right now this is really the all-in, because if AEW succeeds, then they have the next TNA or WCW. And if AEW fails, then the Elite will be in WWE within 6 months after it fails. And they aren't going to have their heat back.
And what?
And if they go in after AEW fails, the heat would have cooled off badly.
Okay.
And it might be for the best if it did, because Cody's proved he could probably be a main eventer, and Kenny Omega could either go like AJ Styles, where he's so good they have to put him in, or they fall him down. But with the Young Bucks, there's no way they'd be as valuable to WWE as it would be to get them right now. So,
and that's last time the Bucks worked PWG?
What?
When was the last time they worked PWG?
I don't know, but I think that they have a deal in their Ring of Honor contract, and probably with AEW, that they can work PWG all they want. So they do have that at least.
Okay.
Okay, the next one would also be, since we already had the comeback of the year as well with PCO is on this one. And the only person who'd have a chance at it would be Daniel Bryan. So that was pretty clear. So we get another one that's pretty much obvious of who would be Rookie of the Year for 2018, and why is it Ronda Rousey?
I have Rousey because she's been a natural.
Yeah, and there's pretty much no way around that she has to be Rookie of the Year this year, because she took to it incredibly quickly and has actually become very, very good in a very short time. Like, yeah. It's not even just that she's good or it's just she's scripted. She's genuinely good.
Hell, if we're going to talk about awards, maybe she does what Ichiro did his first year in Major League Baseball, Rookie of the Year and MVP.
Honestly, that would be a question mark on it, but I'm not sure. There's still good cases for MVPs there on it, but she would be in the discussion there, because that's how great that season was on it. And it just says that even if there's a question of WWE having Dana White being filleted each time, going after MMA workers, this shit works. Like, for instance, you have Rousey in there. You have Matt Riddle, who became an indie darling and one of the top guys in NXT. You have guys like
saying that way back in like 2003, 2004, and it's come full circle.
Yeah, and with the Most Improved Wrestler of the Year award, it's going to be a toss-up between, does Sonya Deville get it or does Liv Morgan get it? So,
trying to think. Most Improved.
Yeah.
That's a hard one.
Yeah. And that's really one of the pluses, because usually fans don't know when someone's improved until it's obvious on them, which is why it goes to those ones, is my theory on it.
We still on?
Yeah, we're still on. That's one of the problems when we're all thinking. This is why we need a Jeopardy box to just play the do 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 do
I'll
stuff.
do it. Oh, McDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O, and on the farm they had a duck, E-I-E-I-O, with a quack quack here and a quack quack there, here a quack, there a quack, everywhere quack quack. And I'm going to stop because I don't want to use that for the song of the week.
Yeah. And that's one of the possibilities for most improved wrestler of the year, Old McDonald. But yeah, with those two people, you can make strong cases. Both of them have improved, and both of them turned the corner by getting on the main roster. But it's really going to be a question mark for who gets it.
Give it to Sonya.
Yeah.
And Sonya, the one I called a few weeks ago, Elizabeth Gillies as a fighter.
Yes, it is.
Okay, give it to Elizabeth Gillies if she was an MMA fighter.
Yep. Works.
Or aka Jade West from Victorious if she was an MMA fighter. You know what? That's what she needs to do. Sonya Deville, when she finally breaks off her Mandy Rose, have her get colored hair like Jade had in Victorious.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, you know what? Go all in on it. Sign some Indian looking dude. You know, I mean, sign some Indian looking dude. No fucking Jinder Mahal will not cut it. Sign some young Indian looking dude and have her be a couple with him.
Okay.
Because look, I mean, if you could have R-Truth and Carmella rip off iCarly, we can have a Victorious rip off there too. Dan Schneider might be booking the WWE if he keeps listening to this. No, abort.
I'm pretty sure that if you had Sonya Deville become a couple with some Indian-looking dude, you would have
even though he's not Indian.
No, you would have, but if it's some dude who's in a couple with Deville, you would have every person on the internet rioting if that happened.
Why?
Well, when a mommy and another mommy love each other very much.
Oh, come on.
No, this is serious. Deville is an out lesbian, so.
And there aren't like lesbians that play straight on TV.
Yeah, but if it happened on this one and they made one of the few out gay people in the WWE in a relationship in a straight relationship on those and didn't go with the representation, that would be a pretty good reason for fans to riot on this one. Because fans want some inclusivity and they want some diversity, and that would be the easiest way to do it. So,
and the funny thing is, people thought they were going to get that with Sasha Banks and Bayley, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah. Well, that also goes with it, where if you're going to do something like that, it works best if it's from someone who actually is a lesbian in real life. So, if you're going to do that, then it would make sense. And if you do take that and give them a straight relationship, there's a pretty good reason to protest that. So
I thought that was a rumor. Sonya Deville is lesbian?
No, she came out during her time on Tough Enough. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is her girlfriend? Who's her girlfriend?
Her girlfriend was the developmental trainee who was supposed to be Sami Callihan's manager on it, but ended up being part of the Nazi stuff. Zara Schreiber, so.
Oh, wait a minute. Do you mean her lesbian girlfriend was the girl Seth Rollins' girlfriend?
Yep.
Wow. Why didn't she wind up showing up?
Because she was found on her Instagram posting Nazi shit.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was with Rollins before that.
Pretty much safely say that she's gotten over it. So
it's funny how she was with Rollins, now she's with Sonya Deville. Are Rollins and Deville known Nazis?
Nope. I think Deville probably isn't a Nazi, and Rollins hasn't been seen as a Nazi in any way, shape, or form. So
good.
Yeah.
Let's keep it that way.
Yeah. We remind you, Whacked Out Wrestling is anti-Nazis. And
as we established, Nazis are considered unfuckable.
Yes.
How unfuckable are they?
They make Chris Chan look like Brad Pitt. And then before we go to the song of the week, we have the Crown Jewel Award for Worst Show of the Year. And this is a special award that's dedicated...
The Woody Allen Show. No, yes. I don't know.
And this is dedicated to Crown Jewel, which was one of the worst shows of the year on it, and showing what the worst possible show that WWE could do. And the winner of the Crown Jewel Award for Worst Show of the Year this year would be... Backlash 2018. Now you have a problem when Crown Jewel can't even win the worst show of the year because Crown Jewel was bad. It was reprehensible that they went there after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. It had Brock Lesnar re-win the title, Shane McMahon become the best in the world, and it still wasn't as bad as Backlash 2018. That show was WCW 2000 bad. There's no way around it. It went past you can watch it and at least laugh at how ignorant the WWE was with all that stuff. With Crown.
Now imagine WCW 2000 back when Hogan was trying to be Stone Cold Steve Austin with FUNB, which I did not know what it stood for. I just see why has he got fund on his pants?
Yes.
And then someone said it meant fuck you, New Blood. Fuck you, New Blood. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but that was really bad for it to the point where even with Crown Jewel, you could at least laugh at how short-sighted the show was. With Backlash, you couldn't laugh. You couldn't smile. All you could do was weep. Because that's at a level of bad that just goes past bad.
Damn.
Yeah, there's
would Russell Crap do a special special induction to it?
It would be worthy of a special induction because it was that bad on it. And it's not even going to get the credit for being that bad because Crown Jewel was just so reprehensible that you couldn't do anything about it.
And supposedly, the Saudi prince you were saying, or somebody was saying the Saudi prince is rumored to have bought like 20 shows in 10 years.
Yeah, well, it's known that he's bought 20 shows in 10 years, and
supposedly he wants The Rock as champ for one of those shows. So, yeah, like Casey used to say, the hits just keep on coming.
Yeah, well, he's already stated that there's a $20 million bonus if they get The Rock as champion for one of those shows. So it already had the things there where he wanted Hulk Hogan back. They brought Hulk Hogan back. He wanted Yokozuna, even if Yokozuna was dead. They found a random sumo wrestler and gave him Yokozuna. So if he wanted anything, he would get it. But even then,
let's hope he wants nails.
Yes. And even then it was weird because at least the difference between Crown Jewel and Greatest Royal Rumble was they were both bad to go to Saudi Arabia with all their controversy, but at least with Greatest Royal Rumble, you can make the case that WWE left Saudi Arabia better than they did when it came in. With the inadvertent thing where they said, no women, period. And WWE showed the best of both worlds commercial for their pay-per-views on the show, which had women in the show, and people were angry at it. But even then, a week later, not only did they say, okay, it's fine, but they said, okay, girls can play sports now. So there was the proof at that time that WWE did the right thing, and it was helping the country. But Crown Jewel, after the murder of Khashoggi, there was no forgiving it. So
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to the NXT hires, I had no idea Penelope Ford's real name was what? Olivia Mercier?
Yep.
And she was an ex-cheerleader?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I noticed that quite a few of the people, we had mentioned the power lifter angle, but there were quite a few people who had done cheerleading in college, which I would involve a lot of acrobatics, so that also lends itself well.
And that
Dude,
makes-
I mean, I'll tell you this. I mean, male cheerleaders are underrated as far as strength. Everyone should talk shit about male cheerleaders, but dude, they are strong as hell and they get to hang around hot babes all the time.
Yeah, I'm not talking any shit about them.
No, but people like to joke about that.
I'm not going to knock him, so since I used to do it. So
Really? You used to be a male cheerleader?
yeah, for a
You
school
got
that
to hang out-
didn't have any sports teams. So
You got to hang out with hot girls all the time. You lived the dream, Tommy.
yeah, but that's what happens when you're a cheerleader at a school that doesn't have a sports team. So. But
I wasn't trying to talk any smack about it. I was just
I
pointing
know,
out
I know,
that
but a lot of
they
people
do.
do. That's what I'm saying.
yeah, and it's honestly interesting that they are going to cheerleaders on them because we've seen, for example, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte were both competitive cheerleaders before, and incidentally, they're very good aerialists, which happens when you're doing aerial moves in cheerleading. So,
Yep.
So this is a good time for the song of the week. So give it to him, Joey.
All right. Well, I got an interesting song of the week. I've got yesterday or today before the show came on, one of my all-time favorite movies and one of my biggest influences came on TV called The Wizard. So this week I want to play a song from The Wizard, and tonight's song of the week is actually an interesting pick. It's from the lead singer of Mike and the Mechanics when he went solo, Mr. Paul Carrack, and the song is called I Live by the Groove. So here's the song of the week. Sorry, I'll start this again. It hiccuped.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go again. Just a minor hiccup.
Everybody feel the beat. the groove. I live by 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 the groove. Well, I can't move. I live by the groove. I live by the groove. I can't do it. For the groove. I live by the groove. I live for the groove. I live for the groove. I can't move. So I live for the groove. I live by the groove. If I can hear, I can love. I live by the groove. You don't see that.
All right, that was Paul Carrack, I Live by the Groove from the movie The Wizard. Fun fact about that song, Joe Lynn Turner, Curtis King, and Daryl Hall. Yes, that Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates provided backing vocals in this song.
I almost can't go for that. No can do.
But yeah, that's one of the very lost, forgotten song from 1989 from the movie The Wizard. Paul Carrack, I Live by the Groove. That is a song of the week.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and going back to the rest of this one, we have the next one, Best Babyface of the Year. Your thoughts?
Oh, I would have given it to Braun Strowman, and then he had that heel turn, so he's out. Roman Reigns was actually an interesting pick, but cancer happened, and I'm going to tell you this: when he comes back, he's going to get a Hogan-level face pop.
Yeah, because
as odd as it, could a case be made for Omega in New Japan?
It might be a possibility on these ones. I'd make the case, and we're seeing it from the last few weeks on it, with the dark horse pick there being Mustafa Ali, who was an amazing babyface on 205 Live, and we're just seeing him for the last few weeks on SmackDown, but he was this good all year as a top babyface. So
hopefully his momentum will continue into 2019, and he won't be fed right away to Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, and forgotten about. Hopefully.
Well, at least one plus on this one is that Daniel Bryan had always said one of his goals now as a top guy was he wanted to be the face of SmackDown, and he wanted to spend his later days on it putting over a bunch of guys who he feels deserve to be put over. And he said that Ali was one of those guys who he said deserved to be put over. So I think he's going to try and make this guy a star. So
awesome. The funny thing is, he was Mustafa Ali everywhere he went. He was Mustafa Ali even in the Indies.
Yeah, and it's basically the same gimmick on this one, where he said famously that he had spent time as an evil terrorist on this one, and then he saw some kids who hated him and realized, shit, I'm making these kids learn to hate people of Muslim descent. And said, nope, I'm not going to be a terrorist again. Change my gimmick. I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah. You said you called him basically Muhammad Hassan if he was a face, like a reformed.
Yeah,
and I
and that was really cool on it. Where the first ones were, I'm Mustafa Ali. I dealt with bigotry after 9/11, and I'm here to the WWE for that one. And then his first show was in Chicago, and he said, I stand corrected. I thought the worst of you, and I was totally wrong. I'm going to fight for you guys from now on. And that was incredibly cool.
Beautiful. That was beautiful.
Yep.
So, I mean, hopefully his push continues into 2019. He is very interesting, and that is a dark horse pick. I think his momentum, I think his nomination would be stronger if it would have happened like 6 months ago, but yeah, it could be made there. I just brought up maybe Kenny, but Kenny it would be a hard time there because Kenny said in a promo in New Japan, am I a heel? Am I a face? I don't know. And he seems to act like a face when he's with Kota, but he seems to still act heelish when he's on his own.
Yeah, and that's really the thing where Bullet Club is basically like the Naruto or of Japan right now, or in Japanese wrestling, where Bullet Club's clearly on its worst days and it's clearly on the decline in Japan, but they can't completely destroy it because it's so hot in America. So
supposedly Tama Tonga twittered Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows said, "Are you ready to do this again?" So maybe they might come back to New Japan after all.
Yeah. Well, the rumors are that their contract expires in the fall, so they may come back, but if they do, it's not going to be until later this year. So,
and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting if the Bucks and Cody leave, and who knows about Kenny Omega. I think either one of two things happens. He drops the title to Hiroshi Tanahashi, and then Shinsuke returns to challenge him, or Omega wins and stays the champ for another year, and 2019 will be all about building up Kota Ibushi, leading to Ibushi winning the title in 2020.
Yeah, I
2020.
still don't know if it's going to be Nakamura, simply because first off, you have the fact that they haven't said his contract expires, and one thing to remember is that even if all the people from the January 4th Exodus should have their contracts expiring in 2019, one thing to remember is that a standing thing WWE does when someone gets an NXT promotion is they rip up your contract and re-sign you to a main roster deal, which goes through. So, considering that Shinsuke Nakamura was a year behind them and went to NXT instead of the main roster, it's likely that he had 1 year on an NXT deal that he got signed with them, then they ripped it up, and he'd have at least another year to go.
But we don't know for sure, so it could still hypothetically happen.
Yeah, it could hypothetically happen, but we'll know in a week or so.
Well, I mean, okay, to be fair, if he just lost the title to Rusev, where does he go from here?
Honestly, it's kind of weird on this one because
that's the thing. I'm saying he's kind of where do you go from here? So it would almost make perfect sense for him to just, exit gracefully and go challenge Tanahashi if he wins the belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it would be possible on it, considering that even if he doesn't get these ones, he basically had the WWE title match at WrestleMania. So
yeah, exactly. And you could just make the story of, and the story is right there for New Japan, the rejuvenated legend versus the conquering hero. And Nakamura and Tanahashi have always been painted as rivals.
Yep.
So add the next chapter to it.
Yeah.
It just seems like the handwriting's on the wall right there, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah, it would be a possibility, but we don't know about his contract, and all signs say that Nakamura likes living in America. He likes living on the beach and surfing all the time, so it's going to be a question mark what he does.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So we've got the next question on this one. Best wrestler in the ring. And this is going to be a very good question on this one because there's a lot of people who had great in-ring performances on it, and I would be surprised if it's a two-way deal for it. So, who would you pick, Joey?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, are we talking about best wrestler in ring, the ring work, or are we talking about the full package?
Ring work, basically. So,
ring work. Okay.
And it can be anyone. Could be a technical wrestler, could be a brawler, could be a high flyer, could be anything.
Well, I have my partialities. I mean, so this is hard to think about because I was blown away by how well Rousey has worked, but I'm going to give an honest dark horse answer for you.
Mm-hmm.
Try this name on for size. Zack Sabre Jr.
I could absolutely see it because Sabre Jr. is a great technical wrestler and he works on it. But in my defense, what I've seen on him he seems like Daniel Bryan circa 2003, where this guy's an amazing technical wrestler. He's the best in the world, but he does a little bit too much working one and only one limb to really be at the top on those ones. And
have you seen him in New Japan, though? He's got Taka as his hype man, and
Yeah.
he's been adding a few strikes here and there. He's adding a lot of kicks, so you can tell he's been influenced by his mentor, Minoru Suzuki.
yeah, and that's a good plus on it.
So he's
I-
improved. He's improved,
Yeah,
and having Taka as the hype man's a nice touch. So I'm gonna go with Zack Sabre Jr. Cautiously.
personally, I'd say that for me, you have good choices like Rousey, Sabre Jr., but to me, it seemed like all year it was a two-horse race. Either you're a New Japan fan and you're picking Kenny Omega, or you're a WWE fan and you're picking Seth Rollins. Because those,
Rollins has been low-key one of the best in the world this year, like you said.
and that's
Oh, absolutely. I agree there.
Seth Rollins 2018 equals Rob Van Dam circa 1998.
yeah. Ever since that 67-minute match he had on Raw at the beginning of the year,
That was a fucking good match.
Yeah, and
Like I said, how Rollins is acting and just how they're booking him, he reminds me of RVD in ECW in 98,
yeah,
98, 99, when he was having great matches with Jerry Lynn and hyping up the fact that the TV title, he was trying to push the TV title as more important than the world title, which was a nice touch.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think
If there's one thing I wish I could do all over again this year, Rollins would never have lost the IC belt. He would have held the title for the full straight year, and they would try to go all in, no pun intended, on his booking and have him hype up that the Intercontinental title is more important than the world title, like RVD was trying to do with the TV title in ECW back in the late 90s.
well, that was also the problem on it because on the one hand, the Intercontinental title was more important than the world title on Raw this year, but that was because, frankly, the old 2000 hardcore title would have been more important than the world title. I think there are shindies that have a title that are more important than the world title. This year.
The Western States Heritage title.
Yes, the Texarkana TV title.
The Iron Man Heavy Metalweight title.
Yeah. I think that I bought a tiny belt at Walmart, and that is more important than the Universal title.
The Schlocko
is
World Championship.
Yes. I think our EFED's titles were more important than the Universal title this year.
Yep.
That was how bad the Universal title was, but somehow it all worked, and it worked because Seth Rollins was killing himself to make sure that it was still good on this one. So I'd probably give him the honor. He doesn't get a lot of credit, but I'll say the hot take that switch Kenny Omega and Seth Rollins and nothing changes this year.
I can buy that. that.
Absolutely.
That's like that would be like how people argue, switch Damian Lillard for Steph Curry, Golden State for Portland.
Yeah, and that's really the thing, because when you have people at the top, there is the question that if you switched them, would anything change? So,
and going in the basketball, honestly, I mean that's the closest comparison, but honestly, I think Golden State would be better with Lillard, and Portland with Curry would get worse.
Yeah, and that's because Curry is basically a very good shooter, and he's the best shooter in the world today. But
best shooter of all time, and I mean he has driving ability, but he doesn't have that explosiveness that Lillard has.
Yeah, and also Lillard's a little bit better in defense than Curry is.
Yeah.
So also helps on it.
But Curry's not a piece of shit defensively.
Yeah, but he's not the best at it. So you're going mostly for shooting. So
right.
So there is that benefit where you'd clearly say Lillard would go through. But with this one, I think you wouldn't have that much of a difference if Omega and Rollins switched places. So that's a good sign for both guys having a case for best in ring.
That would be a dream match today.
Yeah.
Omega versus Rollins. Imagine that crossover match. I said one of my dream crossover matches would be Tanahashi versus Cena, leaders of their generations. But how about Omega versus Rollins?
Yeah.
That would be just as lit.
Yeah. And it's weird with the New Japan ones, if it does go with Nakamura on it, where we never really got Daniel Bryan versus Nakamura, though both guys badly wanted that match. We never got Randy Orton versus Nakamura, which would have been as lit as Cena versus Tanahashi for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So if you're right and Nakamura leaves, there is a lot they left on the table there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then, and going with best in the ring, the next question would be most charismatic. And this one, so who would you say would be the most charismatic of the year?
Someone that would make you watch and keep you glued to your screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really the problem, because the biggest thing is there wasn't that many people who would make you watch and keep you glued to the screen, as the ratings falling have proven.
Some people would argue Becky Lynch.
Yeah, that's who I'd assume on this
Yeah,
one.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, because Becky Lynch was at least the best promos. She's pretty good at Twitter, so that would go for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Maybe if you went NXT, you could say something for Johnny Gargano or Tommaso Ciampa. So,
right.
Mm-hmm. But it is that's probably the biggest weakness for why 2018 wasn't that good, where they've gotten away from charisma in the ring, and people who seem to have some charisma but not a lot stand out more, because everybody's sold as, I'm a great wrestler. I'm here to put on the best match on the card with a man or woman I deeply respect.
Dare I say it, this is the Ring of Honor 2000s influence coming to the mainstream?
Pretty much, yeah.
Some things work on the indies, but don't work well in the mainstream.
Yeah, and that's even the case.
Like I was saying 2 weeks ago. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Johnny.
We were talking about how, like, the Naruto of pro wrestling. I'd say this is more like the Bleach of pro wrestling. Fighting spirits and black tights.
Exactly. And they still are in the Soul Society, even though they shouldn't be anymore. Heck, even if you say that,
a career out of black tights, so
yeah. Hell, even with stuff like Ring of Honor, eventually Ring of Honor realized, no, maybe we should give the title to that super charismatic Dalton Castle guy and see what happens there. So even Ring of Honor knows we got to go with the charismatic guy eventually.
Right.
You can't even say Castle on it because he was very injury prone and didn't have as much this year to prove it on that one. So even he's not in it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just weird. It might be Becky Lynch, but I don't feel like it's that great a pick for it. But she's the best one.
It's
Becky,
more or less default, you know.
But even she doesn't feel like charismatic at all.
Well, it's not just that she's charismatic. It's that you compare her to Ronda Rousey on Twitter and you see the problem where with Ronda Rousey, she's laser focused and makes it clear she wants Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. But with Becky Lynch, her whole thing is based on less on her being charismatic and more on her fans saying, "Yes, Queen, slay!" As for everything she does.
You have to understand. Well, you know that Becky Lynch loves to fight. At least that's what she says.
Mm-hmm. And that really hurts on it, because with that, if she keeps going with it, then everyone she goes after or makes even the snarkiest comment on, she would be, their fans will basically say, "Yes, Queen, slay!" And they'll say, "Okay, we want this match for her. We want this match too. And this one, and this one." Just beat all of them. And that'll be the worst part, because that's going to cost her the WrestleMania main event next year, because they're going to want everything and they're going to be happy with everything. In 2013, if Daniel Bryan said that, wait a second, I'll be happy if I fight Kane, or I'll be happy if I fight Sheamus, or I'll be happy if I fight Triple H, or I'll be happy if I fight John Cena. Hell, put me in NXT and I'll fight Sami Zayn on it, and put me against anyone on the card, and the fans were happy about it, you wouldn't have gotten WrestleMania 30, because the fans had to say, okay, we want Daniel Bryan winning the title and beating the Authority and beating Orton at WrestleMania. Nothing else you give me will do. And right now it seems like the worst part won't be if WWE says, okay, we're doing Charlotte versus Rousey and then Becky Lynch fights Nia Jax in the undercard. But the fact that if Becky fights Nia Jax in the undercard, Becky's fans will be fine with that.
Right.
So that's really the point. She's slaying too much to truly be a slay queen. But this year was pretty bad for charisma, so you got to give it to her. That's really the point, where she's the only one you could consider the most charismatic.
Yeah, it's about the best we can do.
Yeah. They could do better, but not that much. And that's really the problem, where she's galvanized the fans, but SmackDown's apparently having lower...
You know who would have had potential to be most charismatic, but he just was stuck in the lower card, and basically his gimmick has really no lasting energy?
Who?
No Way Jose could have been the most charismatic, but...
I don't know, because No Way Jose seems like a lesser Adam Rose or stuff like that, where he's a great opener. He's one of the best openers in the company. He works well as an opener, but he's just an opener. He shows up, gets the crowd moving. That's all you need him for.
Right.
And that's perfectly respectable, and it's a pretty good living for him, but it's not so much charismatic per se.
One has to wonder, like, what would have happened if the guy brought the Leo Kruger gimmick to the big show rather than Adam Rose.
I don't know, because I think that Kruger was kind of reaching its sell-by date anyway, where just having the Craven the Hunter gimmick failed. Like, even if he brought the gimmick to the pros on it, the second that King Cuerno started in Lucha Underground, Leo Kruger would be dead, because King Cuerno did he's a wrestler hunter, and a hunter who's a wrestler who hunts wrestlers much better than Leo Kruger did it. So
someone was speculating that maybe they'd bring it in and explain that the guy had multiple personalities, but
yeah,
Mick Foley did that character so much better too. So
yeah. And that was really the thing, because he was the psycho. He was the concert pianist who was sent to live with the rats, but he also was a really good hardcore legend on it. And he always dreamed about being this cool guy, and that worked better for it than anything Kruger and Rose did.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it goes to the next question of regression of the year. Who in this year regressed more than anybody else on the card? Like, were good in 2017 and failed in 2018.
If you want to talk about that there, what about all the call-ups? What about all the call-ups for NXT to WWE this year that were great last year? Maybe Ember Moon wins it?
Well, honestly, it's going to be a question mark, because with the call-ups, it all depends on what you're going with. Like with No Way Jose and
AOP, because they were big news in NXT and they looked like they're going to be world beaters, and they're just blah in WWE. How about AOP?
It'll have to be a question mark to see each of them, because of the call-ups, you've got the No Way Jose and the Iconics are noise. Both of them, No Way Jose was always going to be an opener on the main roster. The Iconics were always going to be the comedy heels on the roster. That's what they are. That's what they do. And they're pretty good at it. So there's not really a regression. Most of the others, Ember Moon is still a very good wrestler, but she isn't being booked that well, but that's not her fault. Same with Andrade Cien Almas, who's a very good wrestler, not booked well, not his fault. Sanity, same thing. Good wrestlers, not booked well. The AOP, it's almost those ones, because they got booked into insipidness with the Drake Maverick P stuff, but they're still a very good tag team, and they're still very good in the ring, so you can't say it's regression. If it's regression, it has to be a year ago they were awesome, and this year they were not. So that's a little bit more of a difference there as well. Mm-hmm. And the best example of that one, who might be in this one, would be the most likely hot take there, Charlotte Flair. Because in 2017, she was one of the best in the world. And this year, she's been good, especially by the end of the year, but there was a lot of times where she had clearly fallen from grace.
Basically like basically a mid-carder.
Yeah. Like she's being pushed as the top star right now, but she's clearly not good enough to be. She's lost a step, and it's pretty obvious for it. So
right, I can see that. I really, that's what I'm saying. It's kind of hard to tell. I was gonna pick one of the NXT call-ups, but when you talk about people that have been on the roster all year, that's very hard to say. I'd almost want to say Asuka, but then Asuka won the title. Yeah. Because Asuka, before winning the title, might have had a case because she went from unstoppable badass to teaming up with Naomi, which was a comedy gimmick. But they redeemed themselves by giving her the belt. So
yeah. And even then, it was still the case where with Asuka, it's the same thing. It's not so much that she's lost a step in the ring as much as it was she was like Goldberg in 1999, where the streak just overtook everything about her character. And when it overtakes everything, eventually, once they lose the streak, you're left with nothing. And so what are you going to do in that instance? And it took this much time to realize that it went. And you see stuff with Carmella, Luke beating her on it, and the team with Naomi. You see it was those ones, but then you look closer and you realize, shit, without the streak, all Asuka was a crazy costumed, neon-haired girl on it. She was basically who does the rear view. She was basically Asian Naomi.
Yeah. It begs the question, like, how would a Rousey-Asuka match be? That would be interesting and might be fun.
Yeah, that honestly, it looked like until they got the streak, Rousey versus Asuka should have been the main event of WrestleMania this year, but they chose to end the streak there, and they probably did the right thing for it. So it would probably be interesting to see, at least.
What do you think of this tag team with Shane and The Miz now happening?
Honestly, I think I'm not sure what to think on this one, because the big weird thing on this was it seemed like that gimmick should have been ended with The Miz and Shane McMahon just ending the storyline like they did everything else for we're overhauling the show. We're going to be better on it. Like they said that the Shane McMahon heel turn was off in January for it. So it's pretty surprising they're continuing with that storyline. And I think
would it be odd if I want to see Shane and The Miz versus Golden Lovers in a crossover match?
It would be interesting to say at the very least, but it would just be interesting. But I'm thinking they did this one because just the fact they're doing this tag team makes me think that The Miz may low-key be a favorite to win the Royal Rumble, because if they're continuing this on it, it looks like Endgame might be they want Miz as a face versus Daniel Bryan as a heel in the blow-off of their feud. So,
which would be very interesting.
Yeah. And that would be a very cool thing. And if they tie it with, like I've been predicting for a little while, Endgame with all the twists and turns, and Gargano versus Ciampa would be NXT TakeOver New York. Gargano's the heel and Ciampa's the babyface.
Right.
So it would be interesting if they did both of those at the same time. So
they very well could.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then. Next one is the most disappointing news item, and there's only one thing that really can be the answer this year, and that one was the words they'll be remembered for years. My name is Joe, and for the last 11 years, I've been living with leukemia.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is going to get such a baby face pop when he comes back.
Yep. And this is one of
You know, I will call it right now. When he
Yeah,
comes
no better.
has the redeeming story, he's going to be like Hogan.
Yeah. If he can get through this, and there's no sign that says he won't get through it, but this is going to be
He'll not
very
get
good.
through it anymore. He'll be babyface Hogan in the 80s.
Yeah. Because this was one of those where even beforehand it was just disappointing for the whole year on it, where even before his cancer, he should have won at WrestleMania. And they should have said, okay, we're getting on with it. Roman's beating Lesnar. We don't care if some smarks get a little frowny face about it. We're giving Roman the ball, and he's running with it this year. And then he loses to Lesnar at WrestleMania. But it's okay. They sold the world title change to the Saudis as bullshit. It's happening, but it's happening in a month. And Roman loses at Greatest Royal Rumble. And then Roman Reigns has the choke artist thing. And by the time he wins at SummerSlam and finally they give him the ball, 3 months later he loses the title in the worst way to lose it in wrestling history.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you know, why I was saying they should tie a rocket to Strowman, push him to the moon. And I still want to see that happen, yet.
Yeah. It's weird because Strowman right now seems to me like the 2018 version of Sid Vicious in those ones, where Strowman's not the guy, but they don't have the guy right now. And Strowman's a very good placeholder for the guy until someone catches some momentum and they can say, okay, this is the guy, we're running with this person.
Strowman's very underrated when it comes to comedy, too. I mean, I was thinking about what he did on Raw with Heyman, and then forget that. How about when he drug Owens in the crapper?
Yeah.
And I mean, those were, and then instead of that, and then from all that, what about all the times where he just destroyed Roman Reigns as well? I mean, they were comedy in a way too, like comedy in the third sense, but he's very underrated as far as comedy.
Yeah, and that's really the thing, because Strowman's very good and he should be the top guy right now, but it's also the case where it's not that he should be the top guy like he's the future of the business, but that he's just a Sid Vicious type. He's not the guy, but you don't have the guy, and he's a pretty good placeholder until you find the guy.
Right. Let's just hope that he doesn't snap his leg like Sid does.
Yeah.
Or decide to fight old vets with squeegees.
Yeah. Well, he is twice the monster that most people are, and he has half the brain you do. Okay, then, and now we have one of the toughest moments to pick on this one, and that would be worst promotional tactic of the year. And God, that's going to be tough to determine this year. God, there's so many possibilities there. Do you go with Dean Ambrose using Roman's cancer in the feud? Do you go with them billing Nia Jax as the face breaker to try and get in where people think she may have legitimately attacked Becky Lynch and just up and wasted her? You go with the fact that some places are billing Bram based on his domestic violence record to make him a monster. You go with
that. Again, what was that other one?
Which one?
The domestic violence, what happened?
Some promotions in England billing Bram as more of a monster heel by using his domestic violence tips.
Oh, jeez.
Do you use stuff like things like Michael Elgin, just Michael Elgin, or how Michael Elgin snuck his way onto the card in Chicago when they had Naito for it, and people rioted there? Do you use Crown Jewel on it?
What about the fact that they were still carrying on with the breast cancer deal after Roman announced he had it?
Well, honestly, I can go with that one because the breast cancer one, because WWE doesn't realize that Susan G. Komen is bullshit, so...
You went on a diatribe about that a long while back, I mean, and it was just perfectly spot on. I mean, I picked that.
Yeah. I don't know, because it might be those ones, and... it might be a case where there's worse tactics in both WWE and in the in other ones. So I'd say worst promotional tactic would probably be them using the Dean Ambrose thing to get Roman's cancer in storylines for it would probably be bad there. And then on the indie scene, I'd use the AAW sneaking Michael Elgin onto the card.
How bad did they riot?
They were furious about that because...
What did they do, destroy the building or something?
Well, what happened was, in February on this one...
No, I know what happened, but I mean, how bad was the riot? Did they destroy things?
The people were furious that they put Elgin on the card, so... And that just changed the whole thing where before...
I just had a really dark thought. I mean, imagine if Elgin, as a fuck you to the fans, decided he was going to try to channel Pillman in ECW.
Honestly, that would have been... It wouldn't even worked on those ones because...
Like Elgin, he would take a pee in the ring.
Yeah. Elgin just being there was bad enough for it. Remember, this...
I mean, if it's a dumpster fire, why not pour a little more gas on it? Why not? We're this far in.
Honestly, peeing in the ring wouldn't have changed anything or been more of a dumpster fire than just having him. Because, honestly, that whole thing added a new level of heat that both beat X-Pac heat somehow. Like, before X-Pac heat was the, we don't want to see you, we want no part of you, we're openly hijacking this show to say, fire this guy, we don't want them anywhere. And even then, X-Pac heat has been beaten by AAW Elgin heat, going to, we know what you did in real life. You're not welcome here anymore.
Yeah, when you got that kind of heat, you know you did something really shitty and bad.
Yeah, and what Elgin did was pretty bad on it with the first example of the Me Too era hitting pro wrestling on it. So,
and now there's Men Too going on, like as an Me Too movement.
Yeah, and bullshit for that stuff on it. The real Men Too would be the fact that that if a man gets sexually assaulted, no one will believe him. So.
No, I don't know. I mean, that's a heavy subject. I mean, who's really to say? I mean, both sexes lie about it in some form or another.
Well, it's not even those ones. It's the fact that for the most part on these ones, I was sexually abused as a kid on these ones. So I've had those ones and had the feeling that you had people say, oh, you couldn't have been abused on it. You were a boy, so, and it feels that's a little bit more.
Fuck them.
Yes.
Tommy, you know what? You should have beaten the ever-living shit out of people that said that to you.
Of course, and that's really the point on it, where you know that it happens and you just don't feel like they take your side on it, but that's the real Men Too on it, where it doesn't matter that you don't know that you can ask a woman out because you're worried you're going to get accused of sexual abuse or something like that. No, that's not it. Bullshit. The real one is if you really are abused by someone and people say, no, you're not really abused on things like that. You couldn't have been abused on it. And that's what the Men Too should be. But they won't listen to that because there is that viewpoint that if you're sexually abused by a woman, it's, dude, you would never believe what happened to me, which is bullshit. And if you're sexually abused by a man, it's, well, you clearly rejected the man's sexuality, so you couldn't possibly be doing it. If anything, you raped him because you wouldn't let him have gay sex with you. And that's also bullshit.
I was gonna say, didn't something like that happen with Kevin Spacey, and he did some bizarre in-character Twitter post?
Yeah, but that's more in the fuck Spacey. Fuck Spacey so hard, so bad, and wicked bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking about, we were just talking about Me Too coming into pro wrestling. Another thought is I hear a lot of people online complaining about how they allow the women to beat up the men. People bitch about Rousey like taking down Triple H and beating up security guards, and they bitch and complain about that. Like I've seen some Reddit post where the guy was the person, I don't know if it's a guy or girl, I'm going to assume it's a guy, but I could be wrong, but they were complaining about that and talking about how, oh, young kids are seeing this and girls are going to think it's all right to hit men.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, that's a weird thing on it, because the big problem on this one is that they won't allow intergender. And that's basically been proven that
they also brought that up about the mixed match challenge where, you know, the woman, they'd be DQ'd, yet they were talking about Sasha Banks hit one of the guys and wasn't DQ'd.
Yeah, and that's really going to be a question mark, since intergender is a very big thing on the independent scene. Fans want it. The biggest problem is Mattel doesn't want it.
Mexico's been doing it for years.
Yeah, and Mattel is basically the bigger double standard there would be the fact that Mattel makes DC toys, and they have DC Wonder Woman beat up men in their movies and stuff like that. They made
Lucha Underground. Did they do that too?
Yeah, and those are basically things where you should be getting on them for saying, okay, you'll allow intergender fights in these products, but not in WWE, where it's basically just a fight scene come to life. There's no real.
It's about Mexico and Lucha Underground is they treat them as equals, real equals. Like they say they don't even look at sex. They say these are fighters, these are warriors, they're vicious no matter what sex they are, and that's where we should be going with this.
Yeah,
and people that bitch and moan, shut the fuck up. It's entertainment. I mean, like you guys are probably the same motherfuckers that were creaming your pants and jacking and jilling off when you saw Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman laying the smackdown on Michael Keaton Batman. So eat a giant dizzick, you motherfuckers.
Yeah, and that's really the thing on it, because if you look at pro wrestling, the news flash that we keep remembering, wrestling is fake. And because wrestling is fake,
like David Arquette.
Yep. And because wrestling is fake, you're basically watching a fight scene in a ring on this one. So ostensibly, there's no difference between say Becky Lynch beating up James Ellsworth, or for example, something like Scarlett Johansson beating up Tom Hiddleston in the Avengers. They're both some actors who are trained to do this in a fight.
My God, how bad would... Sorry.
Go ahead.
My God, how bad people would... If it happened right now, how bad would people bitch today if Dreamer pile driving Francine happened now versus when it did happen in ECW?
Of course, and that's really the problem, because at least on the independent scene, people are willing to see, okay, this is a good performer, and this is also a good performer. Let's see him perform in an exhibition match. And even then, there's the...
making a career doing that with all the women.
Yeah. And even then, you have independent problems where the storyline always seems to be stuff like, I'm a good wrestler. I'm here to show I'm the best wrestler. I'm a big, evil, mean, brute man. I don't respect you. They have a wrestle. You're really good. I respect you. Repeat the next time with someone else, and someone else, and someone else. And that guy again in a different promotion, and someone else, and someone else.
3 pay-per-view cycles later.
Yeah. And it's rare you even have stuff like, one reason that I'm a fan of Nova Pro, which Mikhail works with it and on it as our disclaimer on it, was the fact that they had one of the best ones of Angelus Lane versus Keith Lee, which was unique because they sold the woman was the heel in the intergender match, and they sold this as, okay, you cross the line, and you cross this line so much where you have to sit Keith Lee on your ass. And it was a pretty good match for it as a face male versus heel woman, and it didn't, and you felt like this is
what was her gimmick? Why was she a heel? Was she like taking the feminist theory too far or something?
The gimmick in Nova Pro, Mikhail would be able to get into it more, was on an early Nova Pro show, they were supposed to book Lane, but they canceled her booking at the last minute. And since then, she swore revenge on the show and just ran roughshod, destroying everything she could in this one. And at the point before this one, she threw a fireball at the promoter's son. So,
Damn.
yeah. So that's what said, okay, you've done enough. You're facing Keith Lee.
And who won?
Lee
How?
made him bask in his glory.
What?
Well, that's basically was his gimmick on the indies, so
I'm afraid to ask.
no, that was just his catchphrase, so
Yeah, I'm just thinking, what'd he do? Like throw her through a table or something like Bubba Ray used to do?
it was pretty much a straightforward match, but it was just an example of how much how you do the heel woman versus the face man on it while making it where, yeah, this person crossed the line so much that even if you think it's bad to have the man as the face and the woman as the heel, this woman had it coming. Trust us.
And on that note, someone signed Alley Cat to a contract, please.
Yes.
I've watched a bunch of matches of her, and I mean, I just if Bailey's got that cuteness factor, Alley Cat's got it times like 5.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if 2019 she's one of my picks of someone who's going to break out next year. So
yeah.
So that goes to the next one of it, most overrated, and this is going to have a lot of different possibilities for it.
Could Lesnar be made a case?
I don't know, because Lesnar's not really rated by people anymore because he's basically been going through. So who would you say the most overrated person in wrestling would be?
Oh boy. How can you argue that? I mean, we can argue anyone being overrated. Shit, you could argue Kenny Omega being overrated because everyone would be like,
tell the truth, that was who my first pick was going to be in Kenny Omega because, yes, Omega's good. Yes, he's the best in the world, but he's not the end-all, be-all of pro wrestling, people.
Okay, you just said exactly what I was going to say. Yes.
Yeah.
But Dave Meltzer gave him 7 stars!
Yes, and that's really the problem on this one, where just because Meltzer rides this dude's dick doesn't mean he's the best wrestler in the world.
And let's be fair and honest. I mean, Meltzer was just giving him 6 stars to be masturbatory and pimp New Japan out like he pimped out Ring of Honor in the 2000s. Yeah. And I mean, you know what? I have watched both Okada, Omega. I've watched the matches, and I've watched Misawa Kawada in their heyday, where they was now be completely honest, people. For people that have watched them, was Omega Okada better than Misawa Kawada? Be honest. Not
that much better. Not a star rating better than Misawa.
Thank you. And that's exactly the point.
The Misawa Kawada match had that big botch at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that was not the one. Are you talking about the Tiger Driver where he turns it into where he drops him head first, or are you talking about? That was against Akira Taue, I think, originally back in 1991. Or are you talking about the Gonzo bomb that Kawada did to Misawa? I believe that was in 99.
Gonzo bomb.
Yeah.
That was 99. I'm talking about the match that most people worship at the altar of Misawa Kawada is the 6-3-94 match.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. But it was a good match, but just because Meltzer says something, it's not that good. This is your weekly reminder. Dave Meltzer doxed a rape victim at the abuse shelter she was at in order to protect Michael Elgin. Fuck a Dave Meltzer.
Is Dave Meltzer the king of incels?
Considering his stuff on Peyton Royce this year, there's a very good chance he might be.
What if Dave Meltzer is secretly really Chris Jan's father?
It would not shock me in the least, so...
Nothing shocks me. I mean, I read an article this week that they were arguing that most of the internet people are. There was an article that they said most of the internet is quote unquote fake, and they were arguing that there are more bots populating social media than people. What?
Beats on it, so
yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we talk about all these crazy people, like, hey, Roach, remember we were talking about Chris Chan? I said, what if Chris Chan's actually a genius, like, actually works for the CIA, and we were talking about that. Remember that, Roach?
I don't remember the working for the CIA thing. I think at one point we discussed whether that whole, like, all of the drama was like part of some elaborate performance art.
Yeah, we were saying that, and then I was saying, like, for all we know, he could be like part of the FBI or CIA, or, you know, we were bringing up he could be a honeypot to sucker people in or some shit. Roach?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I don't remember that part, but
okay, I was just
sounds
you know,
like
I was just thinking about that, and you know, where we were going on the conversation about Meltzer and everything. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know why my mind goes in the ways it goes. It just goes. Sometimes shit just comes out.
mm-hmm.
that's how it is for a lot of people.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy, go on.
Oh, I'm just checking on something before I do go on. So it's, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, going back to overrated, yeah, you were talking about Omega. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's not the end-all, be-all. You're completely right. I mean, overrated. See, these awards are sometimes hard to do because it's in the eye of the beholder. I mean, there could be people that say Omega's overrated, or there could be people that say, shit, there'd be people that even say Rousey's overrated.
Yeah. Well, that really
There's arguments for that too, but I mean, see, awards, I mean, when it comes to awards and anything, it's very hard to do because for every argument you give for someone being something, there's a counter argument for them not being it, or there's a counter argument for someone else deserving it more. I'll give you a perfect example. Look at in the 90s, I believe it was 98, I think it was 98, but Karl Malone won the MVP in basketball, and that was during a time where it could have been argued every year, yes, Michael Jordan could be the MVP, but we had to spread it out. Just kind of like now with LeBron James could technically be the MVP every year, but we have to spread it out. So it's kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's really the question on it, where there's not that much to go for. So you have to have the real question of, with overrated, it does have the question where sometimes you can see problems where everything can be overrated in a little bit, but
right.
Overrated's basically underrated. Like, just for the most common thing for overrated and underrated for the last few years, let me give you this argument for it. Imagine, if you will, a 2011 rookie in WWE whose whole or 2012 rookie in WWE. Their whole gimmick was they're a great power wrestler. They had great work as tag team performers. They have the looks of a movie star. Seriously, the guy is a dead ringer for one of the top action heroes in the world. They've got great skill in the ring as a power guy, but they're kind of weak as a promo on it. And this is one of those people who you think has something, but it goes through. Did I just describe Roman Reigns, or did I just describe Cesaro?
Good point.
Yeah.
Cesaro.
Yeah. And yet, for some reason, everybody said Roman Reigns is the most overrated guy in the sport. He's terrible. He shouldn't be there. And they said Cesaro is the most underrated guy in the sport. He should really be in Roman Reigns' position.
Well, Cesaro was an indie darling. He was big in Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Kings of Wrestling with Chris Hero. He was known as Claudio Castagnoli. I mean, the first episode of the show the first episode I did with you, Tommy, you were talking about how Roman Reigns would be huge in Japan, and I did agree. I said he'd be over, and also makes the point what you just said.
Yeah, because really, it does boil down to if Cesaro came up from the Performance Center, he'd be as hated as Roman Reigns. And if Roman Reigns came up from the indie scene, he'd be as beloved as Cesaro.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And
Show
like, and like,
well, as Daniel Bryan would say, fickle, fickle, fickle.
Yes. And that brings to the question, the biggest one of this one, the worst thing of the year. Worst all around, what would be the worst thing? What would you say is the inside track for the Gooker this year?
Define worst, like missed opportunity, sad news.
Like what? What do you think is going to win the Gooker for 2018 from Wrestling Crap? So,
well, you know, you could have made a solid argument for Danielson's heel turn, but he's made up for it ever since cutting promos.
Yeah, I think that honestly this year the most likely, if I had to pick the Gooker this year, I think the inside track's going to be Crown Jewel and Greatest Royal Rumble in the Saudi Arabia deal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because that one would basically be the most short-sighted thing on it. And
yeah, because of the deal, the Saudi prince is basically holding the booking team hostage.
Yeah, and it basically says all the things that are the problem with 2018. The show is terrible. The booking is being held hostage by outside influences. This is an absolutely horrible thing to watch. We have to deal with outright propaganda for an oppressive regime. We have to deal with things that everybody hates on it in booking. But yet it doesn't matter because of this deal, the WWE's having some of the most profit they've ever had in their life. So something's doing right because of all the money they made this year.
Well, you know what? I mean, not to get political or anything, but what you just described reminded me of Donald Trump's reaction to the guy that got killed in Saudi Arabia. And he was talking about, oh, America first. Oh, because America first. You know, if I confronted the Saudi prince, that would mean your gas prices would go up and you would have a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, when you put it like that, it talks about, like, you know, essentially we're given the attitude that money is more important than people, or in this case, when it comes to wrestling, money is more important than entertainment. It doesn't matter if it's being hijacked. We're making money.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you want to talk about we're just going to have to see what happens in 2019. But we were talking about AEW, All In AEW earlier. You were talking about we might, at the best case scenario, get the new WCW.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go one up. I'll go one further. What if AEW might just be the culmination of all the rebellion ever since the 90s when ECW became the hip fed? What if AEW turns out to be the culmination of the no pun intended, the culmination of the Rage Against the Machine, and somehow, some way, maybe 5 years from now, maybe AEW becomes number one in America as far as pro wrestling?
Honestly, I could see it as a possibility, but they would have to have far better storylines and far better things on it, because we've already seen with TNA what happens when your whole goal is being John Kerry wrestling. And that's really what AEW seems like their booking policy is on it. And that's just not enough. You can't support us because we're not WWE. You have to give us a reason to support you. And that's why TNA had the X Division. It had the Knockouts. It had reasons to. Okay, support us if you want indie wrestling stars to be big. Support us if you want indie women to be big. And those were when it was good. And when they tried support us because we're not WWE, it didn't work. And with AEW, they're going to have to do that, where you can get 10,000 seats out of it's a Bullet Club party and Vince McMahon can't come. But when you have an actual federation, you can't do that. You have to have something more than just fuck WWE.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, ECW had a run of fuck WWE, and they had like a peak of 4 years where they were doing good, but it eventually petered out. And then the ironic thing is, years later, it came out that Paul Heyman and had money from Vince McMahon, and Vince actually bought part of ECW. So basically, Vince was funding the rebellion too. It's like that one book I read from Naomi Klein. I mentioned this in an earlier show, No Logo, where they were talking about like mainstream companies making quasi-rebellious indie brands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really the thing on it, where you could see this one, but I'm thinking that AEW is going to have to do more than what they have. They have all the
For all we know, maybe Vince is backing AEW in a way. You just never know.
Yeah, it's possible, but given
wasn't there something about there was a picture of Vince in a Bullet Club t-shirt?
I don't know off the top of my head, but all signs say that when, at the very least, Vince supports what the Elite are doing, and he was right there when they did all in to congratulate them. So Vince is perfectly fine.
He showed up.
Too sweet.
Yeah. So
what'd you say, Roach?
I said too sweet in a Vince McMahon voice.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So at the very least, I don't think that Vince hates it, but he does respect what they're doing, even if now they're going to war with him. So.
Right. I mean, who knows? Vince has bankrolled indie rebellions before. He bankrolled some of ECW. Who knows? He might have bankrolled some of ROH. They talk about how it's all tied together. So,
honestly, I think that if Vince bankrolled ROH or stuff like that, it would have come out from other things besides these ones. Like, for instance, with ECW, when he bankrolled them, it came out the reasons were Paul Heyman said, we're getting $50,000 from Tommy Boy Records for having Scorpio. You want Scorpio? Give us the $50,000 a week that we were getting from his contract. And Vince said, sure, you get the $50,000. And that was how Vince bankrolled them for it.
What were they getting $50,000 from Tommy Boy Records for Too Cold Scorpio?
Allegedly, from what Heyman had said, Scorpio's themes were sponsored by Tommy Boy Records at the time, and so he was saying,
There It Is by Tag Team, and then he had Jungle Boogie by Kool and the Gang, but I think he had Jungle Boogie after he came back, after the Flash Punk gimmick went to shit.
Yeah, but basically that's the reason where apparently Heyman claimed that he was getting money from Tommy Boy for Scorpio's theme, and that's how he got the money. And then later on, when Vince was bankrolling him in '99, he basically had the most obvious thing of it, where Vince said, you can have this amount of money, but I want Taz and I want the Dudley Boys. And Heyman said, okay, I hate to lose you, but Vince wants you. You're now in WWE. And so that was how it happened. And yet with Ring of Honor or TNA, we haven't seen that happen yet. Like, we've seen that WWE is signed.
TNA, they almost bought the library.
Yeah, but they didn't want to spend enough money for TNA for it. Like, they were offering
We've been talking all this time about, like, AEW. What about Corgan's NWA Fed? What's going on there?
I think Corgan start trying to do it, but Corgan seems to know that the best option would be just be a booker and a talent aggregate and just send guys out to different places and say, okay, you can work with this person, work with these guys, and get the show. So,
gotcha.
Mm-hmm. And that would be interesting if Corgan goes further there. But it's kind of a moot point because it wouldn't shock me if Corgan gives Nick Aldis to AEW and says, okay, the NWA title will be the big thing in AEW. So,
right.
Okay, for the big ones, first off, Tag Team of the Year.
Golden Lovers.
I concur there for it, so. Second one on it, the Universe's Sweetheart, or the Woman of the Year.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Yeah, and that one seems pretty likely as well for Becky Lynch. So
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, because there was the case where there'd been people who were sweethearts and people for them, but this time they went past I want this one as my sweetheart and went into you can't ruin her, we won't let you mode, which goes past just you're okay, they like you and into this crowd truly loves them and only true love breaks your heart.
Yeah, Becky Lynch.
Mm-hmm. And then the big one, Wrestler of the Year.
God, we were going back to talking about Rollins and Omega and how you could switch them and there'd be no difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were turning around talking about Omega being overrated, yet an argument could be made for him being Wrestler of the Year. An argument can also be, you know what? But let's turn the corner. What about Hiroshi Tanahashi and his comeback story this year?
Yeah, honestly, that could be interesting on this one, and it's honestly a good sign of how big all of New Japan's factions are, top to bottom. That we're looking at a Taguchi Japan guy being probably the IWGP champion, and no one has a problem with that. And that would be big because you don't see a member of a joke faction anywhere else getting the title on it. So,
yeah, Tanahashi's a member of a joke faction, but I mean, he was known as the ace of the company for so many years.
Yeah.
So he's like in that joke faction, but it's nudge, nudge, wink, wink. He's just playing along. He's just playing along just for jokes. But he's actually been booked as a serious guy for so many years.
Yeah, and even
like John Cena was part of, say, the New Day.
Yeah, even if, like I was saying, it would be closer to, say, Booker T being part of the Misfits in Action than it would be
right as G.I. Bro.
Yeah, so it is possible on those ones, and Tanahashi is a good example because, again, all the people who would have the chances of it, Rollins, Lynch, Omega, all have the benefits, but you could also see him as overrated. So.
Yeah, and Tanahashi, meanwhile, he started like 2018 looking like he was shot. He was on his way out. It started with Minoru Suzuki basically beating him down, to where he had to quit. And then the rest of the year, he just caught fire. And it seemed like we went from talking about Tanahashi's on his way out to this motherfucker might actually last another 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to be very interesting as well.
I'm going to pick Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Yeah, I could definitely see it because even people who would be the all-round ones and other ones like AJ Styles on it, his year was terrible this year, even if he was one of the best out there. So.
Yeah, Styles, I mean, he was a champ most of the year, but he was just there, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so I can absolutely see Tanahashi as my pick too, so. So that's basically our picks for the awards for this year, and as a result, hopefully next year is going to be good. But given that we're going to see the first example of what the new era bears fruit in the next week or so, we're probably going to see AEW being announced. It's like we said on this one. It's been a long December, and there's reason to believe maybe this year will be better than the last. So until then, I'm Thomas S.K. Green. With me is Joey the Caveman and John Roche, and we'll see you next time.
See you next year.
Mm-hmm.